It's time for some questions and answers. Yeah, it's Ask Me Anything here on Studio Live today. My name is Pete, and for the next hour or two, we'll be having a chat. I've got a bunch of topics that I want to talk about, but this show is all about you. It is Ask Me Anything, and it is a live Q&A involving your questions. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, all I ask of you is to just put a Q in front. If you just put a big fatty old Q in front of your comment, it means I'll be able to tag it as a question. I'll come back and answer as many of your questions as I possibly can. We're going to say good day to all the folks who are here live in just a minute, but this week the show is brought to you by me, but more importantly, it's brought to you by you, because it is you folks that allow me to do this. I was having a bit of a think, and I thought we'll talk about it today because this is a kind of relaxed, casual show. But there's studiolivetoday.com, by the way. You can buy my course. You can go to all the links. You can do all the things. But I just wanted to call out that I've been doing this as a full-time gig for over 2 years now. So there's a lot of pros. There's a few cons. There's a few challenges that have been over that time. But overwhelmingly, the reason I've been able to continue doing this is because of you. We do, your music live. That's all about you. GarageBand Weekly is all about you and you telling me what you want to hear about. Even when I do the happy hour, it's more like, even though it's me and my music and I'm playing, it's all you folks by being there, by donating, by liking the videos. It's the only way that I can do this. So I just wanted to start the show by saying that a huge thank you to everyone who watches the show, everyone who likes, everyone who comments, everyone out there who's a patron over at patreon.com/PeteJohns. You are all awesome and you all do good things. So if anyone wants to take the next step, you can do a bunch of stuff. You can join the Discord, you can join the Facebook group, you can become a patron, you can donate to the channel. All those things really do help me out. I don't stop and sort of take note of that often enough, in my humble opinion of myself. Let's say good day to all the folks who are here live, and then we'll dive on in. We've already got the questions starting to come on in. So we'll say good day to Mr. Thomas Christ. Hello to Axioms Underground. Tremor Bear, a stylish new little emoji there for you, Tremor Bear. Looking good, looking sharp, my friend. Thanks for joining us. G'day, Jay Rock Nurse. Hey there, fellow rocker. Hope you are doing well. The Lily Pillies. Yes, this arrived in the mail. My wife went to the post office and hit up the P.O. box. I have the coolest P.O. box number. It's P.O. Box 1111 at Firl. Some people think I'm like trolling them. They're like, it's not really your post office box. I'm like, yeah. When I went to my local post office to get a PO box, I went online and I like 1111 was available, and I'm like, I gotta have that. The coolest thing ever. So thank you. Shout out to Manny who sent this cap on over. Appreciate you. G'day Frank Terzo, Axioms Underground. I've grabbed your question. I've tagged it there to come back to and check out later. G'day Christina. I hope you are well as well. Fat Panda Cat. Hello to you. Hope you are well. Princess LDG is here. She's got a question. I've tagged that one to come back and answer in just a jiffy. And Joe and Barry Glenn, hello to you. Joe and Barry are wonderful patrons, as is Thomas Christ, as are many of the folks who are here live. And again, if you would like to join the cool crew over on Patreon, you can go ahead and do that. Before we get into some questions, just a few little news and notes. Like this show's kind of my sometimes ad hoc sort of show. Like we used to do the Creator Town Hall. We paused that one, and a lot of people said I really missed that because it was a kind of relaxing, laid back kind of show compared to the more furious and frantic Your Music Live where it's all go 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 go. This show is just our chance to sit back and relax and have a bit of a chat. So we will do that. We'll answer your questions in just a moment. Gonna have a quick cough, which will happen a little bit. I was saying to some folks today, I'm 95% better. So there's still a little bit in the voice there. Should be right for the happy hour this weekend. The voice is coming back. It's almost at its normal state, and I've just got a little bit of a tickle, that little lingering cough. And my wife, who had the cove months before me, said, "Yeah, you had that for ever, for a while at least." So yes, I'm looking forward to that. Not. There you go. We'll get through. G'day Barry. Yeah, COVID is indeed not the greatest in the world. Hello Rena. Yes, starting to feel better. G'day Gregory O'Sullivan over there in Melbourne town. Hope you're well. It is summertime. 2nd of December, so we do our seasons based on the start of the month, not this weird 20th, 21st of the month. I don't quite understand how you do seasons in some places, but here it's the 1st of the month. So it is December, and we're finally getting some warm weather. So it's 27, 28 degrees Celsius today, which is very nice. Yeah, I'll continue to cough. Not the greatest thing for this show, but luckily I have a volume slider right by my left finger. So if you have to watch me cough, but hopefully you don't have to hear me cough too often. You made a mistake. Well, I've grabbed your second question, Princess. So we'll try and get that in a minute. So before we jump into the questions, Black Friday, how did you go? Did you buy anything? Let me know here in the chat if you're watching live. I know that Thomas bought himself a new microphone and a few bits and pieces. A lot of folks got into some of the apps. There were some great apps on sale, some great software specials. So a lot of folks picked up on some of those. There were some freebies out there that folks picked up on. And hopefully, like me, you stocked up on some of the boring stuff, some of your cables and your guitar strings and that sort of thing. That's pretty much all I went with. Didn't buy anything particularly exciting and glamorous, mostly because I have to replace my daughter's phone that got the green vertical line of doom, her old iPhone, which was my old iPhone 10s. So yeah, I've had to spend a little bit of money to buy her a new phone. Yes, I'm buying that. In fact, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I'm buying on Amazon. So I'm buying from the Apple store on the Amazon Marketplace. It is apparently a new iPhone 11. And a little bit dubious, but the reviews seem good from verified purchasers. And yeah, I didn't want to spend all the money for an iPhone 12 or 13 or 14, which are the current ones available. The 11's been discontinued, obviously, but there's kind of some new old stock that kicks around, some inbox items. So that'll probably arrive today. So watch this space, because I've recommended folks do that in the past in terms of the renew stuff. And the reason I buy from Amazon, I know, suckling from the Jeff Bezos teat. But the reason I buy from Amazon is their returns policy is kind of awesome, to the point where I was watching a video this week and they actually spend billions of dollars and create, masses of landfill through returns, because some people will just buy everything and then return 90% of it, which is not a great way to go for both the original seller, because you're kind of shafting them, as well as the environmental impact of not only the landfill created by the returns, because they can't just stick them back on a shelf. It doesn't usually work that way, but also the carbon footprint of the sending to and fro. So as much as I love online shopping and as much as I use it, I don't want to be a hypocrite about it. Yeah, just buy stuff that you want and need and do your research first. So that's what I did, and fingers are crossed that things are going to work out for me there. We'll talk about some other things as we go on. Princess LDG purchased the Lursen mastering console, and Riffler, the mastering console, wasn't on sale. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it's a problem. We call that a meteorological winter, summer, etc. Which meteorological winter started for us today? Okay, there you go. A bit like the calendar month, and we have the weird thing where we have the financial year that starts on the 1st of July for some bloody reason. Who knows why? Yeah, interesting stuff. All right, let's I don't do Black Friday. I do Blue Monday. How does it feel? Is that Blue Monday? That song? Orgy? No, I don't know. Yes, exactly. Nice one indeed. But how did it feel? Oh, there you go. See, Fat Panda Cat's already ahead of it. It felt kind of green. Yeah, spending up the green. Yeah, it's interesting looking at money, and because we're actually considering a holiday next year to the US of A, and I'm remembering back to the money, and it's green, and it all looks the same, and I'm so worried that I'm going to tip the bellhop at 20 by mistake, because all your money looks the same. Let's answer some questions, shall we? Because we've got a few questions coming on in here. We're going to answer this one first. Why are the FX not working in my Reaper? That's a great question. You know what? I haven't used Reaper in the longest time. It is an excellent free option. It's probably being a little surpassed. So if you go to reaper.fm, you can actually download it. You know what? I should download this. I'm going to download Reaper, because I haven't used it. I used to have a license, but it expired, because you get the evaluation version for free. Here we go. Mac OS 10.5, so for Intel and ARM, optimized 64-bit. I don't know which one to go for. Hang on. 10.5, 10.15 plus. Yeah, I'm not sure which one that's macOS 32-bit. These are both 64-bit, but which one would be optimized for? That's Intel and ARM, universal for Intel and ARM. Anyway, I'll do that later in my own time. But yeah, if you haven't used Reaper before, it's actually pretty darn cool. The only advice I'd have is, if you've got problems with this, is there's a bloke, and I've forgotten his name, Reaper blog. There's a Reaper blog, is it this one here? who he does amazing work, and I cannot for the life of me remember. John Tidy is his name. There you go. So yeah, he has amazing videos about Reaper. So if you go Reaper blog FX, I bet that there's a complete. There you go. Rediscover your FX collection. Yeah. So there's a bunch of stuff in here, saving items with FX automation, rendering items, mastering with Reaper, stock FX plugins. So yeah, I would go and check out John Tidy's videos on Reaper, because in my experience, back when I was faffing about with Reaper, whenever I hit a wall, and it was common, because while Reaper is super awesome, it is also next level complex, which is great because you can make it do anything. You can literally change the entire way it looks. So there's, if you go customize, Reaper customization, yeah, you can basically customize the entire theme. You can make it look however you want to. And a lot of folks that maybe use Pro Tools in the past, when they get Reaper, you can actually install like a template that makes it look just like Pro Tools. You could probably even make Reaper look just like GarageBand if you wanted to, or at least as close to it as possible. So yeah, I would go and check that out. And he does regular Q&As and things over there as well, and he's on all the social platforms. So John Tidy of Reaper blog fame, and I don't know if they still do it, but he also used to do a mastering show with mastering engineer Ian Shepherd. So if you want to learn all about mastering, there's some great info over there if you want to go there. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, Orgy did the metal cover. Orgy did the metal cover of it's New Order, and Orgy did the metal cover. What we're talking about. Yeah, so yeah, go over to Reaper blog and check out the stuff over there. Thank you for your question. And if you have any other questions, then please leave your question here. I've grabbed your question, the Lily Pillies. If anyone else has anything that they would like to ask, please throw it right here in the chat. You're welcome. Look, I don't guarantee that I've got all the answers, but I usually know of someone who has the answers. So that would be my recommendation. Jump over to the Reaper blog, because Reaper is amazing. There's lots of Logic or Pro Tools skins. Reaper had high learning curve for me, but it's an excellent tool. Yeah, absolutely. And look, if I went back to a DAW on a desktop now that wasn't GarageBand or Logic, it would probably be Reaper. I don't think I'd want to learn Cake. I used to use Cakewalk back in the day, and I know Cakewalk by BandLab is a great free option, and my old mate Mike, Creative Source, has some great videos on it. So if I did want to learn something different, I would potentially go with that. They've got a great community too around Cakewalk by BandLab, so maybe I would go and check that out. But yeah, we'll see how we go. All right, let's thank you, Jack. J Rock Nurse, I've grabbed your question there as well. But before that, we're going to grab this one, who's come in from Princess LDG. It wouldn't be a show without a Princess LDG question. But what we have to do, whenever we get a question from Princess LDG, I have to make up a new meaning of the acronym. And I'd like to invite you along to do this. I know Princess won't mind us doing that. So what does Princess LDG actually stand for? I'm going to say it's Princess Lady Digs Gin. So I think she's a big gin fan, and she likes drinking gin. So I think it's Princess Lady Digs Gin. But please, if you're here live, let us know what you think the mysterious LDG is all about. She has a question anyway. When mixing vocals, do you remove dead space where you're not singing? In the parts where I'm not singing, there is no background noise. That's a great question, actually. Why don't we fire up the iPad here and make sure everything's working for starters? I just need to. My face is too far away. It's like we can't see you, Johns. You're too far away. I'm just going to unplug and replug my iPad and turn on the device here. So my iPad, by the way, I plug in through a Steinberg UR22C. I've got a 10 DAC powered USB hub, and I use a Apple USB-C dongle that has the HDMI and the USB. If you ever wondered how I pop my iPad up on the screen like this, that is how. So the question here from Princess LDG: when mixing your vocals, and maybe let us know if you're here live. Let us know if you're on the replay, if you've got tips on this sort of thing, because there's, like most things, there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. So let's jump into my Songtember song. We'll use Work in Progress as an example here. Let's just duplicate this out so that we can have a version here to hack about with for a moment. So what we're talking about here is in the parts of the vocals where you're not singing, you've got two options. And what I generally do, because I'm a lazy man, I generally, as you can see there, just leave it all together. I don't actually remove the space between the words. So you can do it both ways. So let's just, so this is the lead vocal on this particular track. Let's take a listen. We're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured out. Yes, we're all just a work in progress. So there's two parts here. There's the breath sounds there. So you hear that when I'm doing the breath, it's the little just a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured out. Nobody. And then there's not only the breath sounds, as my mouse decides to stop working, not only the breath sounds, but then there's these bits in between here. So what I'll often do with vocals like this is actually come in here and trim the tops and tails. So you can do that two ways. You can either grab there and just drag back, grab there and drag up there. And what that's going to do is exactly what Princess is saying here. It's going to create blank space. Out. Nobody's knowing. So, because you really don't need, if we just undo that, you really don't need to hear like the background breathing noise in there. Again, if you've got a good quality microphone and a good quality preamp, get out. Nobody. You're not going to hear much. And I keep the breath sounds in there. You could also choose to use automation to automate the breath sound. So every time you take a breath, you drop the volume down and then you bring it back up again. So that's one option. And you can also use automation. So if I wanted this to be super clean, let's just say I didn't have the cleanest vocal recording and I was playing along here. Nobody's knowing all they can. What I might want to do is come in here and do a clip. So just tap on there, go split. And it doesn't matter what DAW you're using. They're all pretty much the same. Split it there, come to here, split it again, and then just remove that. Oh, didn't use the split. And then remove that section just by tapping on it, tapping again, and hitting deleted. And then you're going to get something like this. Not everything. What you need to be careful of. Did you hear what happened there though? I didn't leave enough of it. Even though it looks like the audio ends, it really doesn't because... Not everything. So I tend to find the reason I leave things well enough alone these days is that I find that the setup I have here, my microphone, my audio interface and preamp, everything is good enough, quality-wise, that little tiny bit, like I would rather have that very little tiny bit of background noise in there than risk cutting off or spending time making sure I don't cut off the end or the start of any phrasing. So I just let it go. But if you're using, say, a condenser mic and you've got very like loud or very picking up a lot of sound, then yeah, you may want to consider going in there and doing those. But it's an interesting question. If you're here live, let us know. Do you do the same thing? It really doesn't matter. It's one of those things. Like I think you're learning. Princess LDG has been around the channel for a while, and I think she knows that my answer to almost every question is it depends, and that one definitely depends as well. Yeah, it is Lady Diana's gerbil is Princess LDG. I've gone with that. Lovely and damn good, says Chris Lane Senior. Lovely and damn good. Isn't that what you say when you look in the mirror in the morning and you see your flowing locks, Chris? You're like, lovely and damn good. I like it. I like it a lot. The answer is there is actually background noise. So yeah, look, and there's background noise in life as well. Like, let's not get too unrealistic about things. Naturally, you hear a little bit of background noise, and sometimes it actually makes things sound better. When you got a little, it's why people have that analog warmth. Like if you listen to old recordings, you can hear some of that room noise. You can hear some of the things going on in the background. The Beatles recordings were the dirtiest going around. They were filthy, but they were awesome. And sometimes some of the best parts of it was that you could just hear bits and pieces in the background. I liked it. Hello, Still Illa, producing some great music over there. Hope you are doing well. Chris Lane going to wander around the house while listening. Good on you. That's what I do. I've usually just got one AirPod in while I'm wandering the house listening to a Jade Starr, a Thomas Christ, a Rock and Ronnie Ward. That's what I do. Thank you, Fat Panda Cat. Yeah, still one of my favourites. Still Ella says I remove all empty vocal tracks during long instrumental breaks. I don't sweat it for short breaks in phrasing. Yeah, and that's probably a good thing. If you've got a big guitar solo or you've got a massive instrumental break, then sure, like cut it off. Just give yourself a little bit of extra room at the end and make sure you've got a little bit of lead in coming back in and cut it. Because you don't need yourself like heavy breathing into the mic in the background while there's a rock and guitar solo going on. The trouble is if you are layering vocals, the noise accumulates. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. So what you'll notice, if we go back to here, what you will notice is that when I have backing vocals, then yeah, of course, I do exactly that. So take a look at these. So we've got these chorus backing vocals, and you can see I've done exactly that. So here,
we're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured out. Yes, we're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured out. We want.
So yeah, and then of course when it goes in here to the next verse, we don't want me just breathing in the background all through there. So yeah, I definitely do that for backing vocals. It's a lot more important than your lead, because your lead vocals are generally going on most of the way through the song, whereas backing vocals you would want to. Yeah, exactly. Do that. Thomas Christ has got another great suggestion. I like using a noise gate on the mic to deaden that big noise between phrases. Excellent suggestion. If you want to get a little fancy and you want to go and automate things, then you can use a noise gate. So if you've never used a noise gate before, let's come over here and we'll come to this track.
We're all just a work.
I'm just going to take the automation off this so that we can turn this up and have a real listen to it. So we'll just remove the automation. Go away, and that way we can bring up the volume and listen to just this track.
Because we're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured out.
So let's see if we can hear the noise between these phrases. So if you come down here.
Nobody's no.
So there's not a whole lot of noise that we're going to be able to hear here, but what Thomas is talking about is if you come in here to your microphone, actually if you go into here, because we'll need to do it over here, you go into your effects here in GarageBand, it's there, and then you've got the noise gate here. So we can actually turn the noise gate on and you can find the threshold of where the actual noise you want to hear is and what you don't want to hear. So let's just play around with this for a little bit, shall we? We'll go back to the start here.
We're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured. We're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it.
So you can hear there that it's kind of cutting it off, because if you've got your noise gate set too low or high, depending which way you want to look at it, it's going to start cutting it off. So you need to find the point where you're just hearing it, but it's actually cutting off the noise in between.
We're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured out.
You hear that it went, nobody's got it figured out. Try it again.
Just a work in progress. Nobody's got it.
And again, probably I would go a little bit less, because the noise gate is literally on or off in GarageBand here. So
because we're all just a work in progress. Nobody's got it.
At that time, it didn't block it off at all. So I'd need to find somewhere between that 20 and 24 dB to do it. Now, I wouldn't use the stock noise gate here in GarageBand. I would try and do we need the enhanced tuning? No, we'll take the enhanced tuning off. I would actually use a free app from Nembrini called the Nembrini Noise Gate. So Nembrini makes some great guitar apps, and this is kind of designed for guitar, but it works great on vocals too. So if you go to the NA Nembrini Noise Gate, and we come in here, and yeah, we'll do that. So this one actually has the benefit of having a threshold, but it also has a release. It also has a range. So you don't have to have it turned all the way down. You can just have it a bit quieter, and I've showed this in previous videos, so I won't go into detail here. But if you download it, in fact, rather than show you here, if you search Pete John's Noise Gate in your YouTube search engine, then you're going to find this one. There it is, the free noise gate plugin, and I even show it there on guitars. So if you want some hiss-free guitars, I highly recommend that noise gate. And it's actually great. The Mixbox CS, that great set of effects from IK Multimedia, doesn't have a noise gate. So you always have to have something. So the Nembrini free noise gate is always a great option. So excellent stuff, Thomas. Thank you for suggesting that one as well. All right, let's scroll on down. You agree? Thank you. Yeah, Randy says he removes the large dead sections. Absolutely. Fat Panda Cat, it's not a huge issue if I leave it in. Matching tails is a lot of a hassle. Yeah, so that's the thing. Matching the tails and making sure that it's not cutting off. To me, I would rather have a little noise and make sure I don't get that abrupt cut off of a phrase than spend the time. Bruce free for dead space. That's the other option. So yeah, there's yet another option there, which is to use the Bruce free noise reduction app. And look, eventually if you add too many of these apps, things end up sounding a little bit weird, to be very honest. But that's another option here. If you're looking for noise reduction, Bruce free is great. And it's not really going to work that well here, because the in-between bits of this song, when you're not actually hearing much noise at all. But what you do with Bruce free is, let's just say you had some rustling and some background noise that you wanted to get rid of, say in between these phrases. What you do is you come here to Bruce free, you go to the plugin, you tap on there, and then you play it, and when you're hearing the silence, you hold down on this ear button. So let's try it.
Out. Nobody's knowing all.
Oh, I held the ear too long. That's no good. Oh no, and now I've broken it. Because I undid it and then it took Bruce Free away. Let's try that one more time. You got to be careful with this. You can only hold it down while there's silence. Otherwise, it thinks you singing is also silence and then it messes up the profile. So we'll try it again. We'll tap on that one and we'll play it.
Get out. Nobody's knowing all.
So what that does is it profiles the background noise. It's actually really good if you've got a noisy recording that you want to try and salvage. I told the story before, but I had a friend of mine who's his partner, who's also a friend of mine, is a lecturer, and they recorded like this role play that they were doing, and they did it on their porch when it was pouring rain, and all you could hear in the background was just this rat, rat, tat, 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 because it was like a tin roof. And they sent me the recording and said, "Can you do anything with this?" And I said, Bruce Free, let's give it a try. And I did it, and look, wasn't perfect, but it was pretty darn good. So if you've got a recording like that you want to salvage, Bruce Free is good. There is always white noise. You cannot get, we do have to breathe. It's true. And some people that remove every single breath, I think those sound really artificial. I was listening to some pop music with the family last night. We were rocking out to some modern something, and it just didn't sound right because it was all auto-tuned. There was no breath sounds, there was no background noise, and I don't like it. G'day, Brad Example. Speaking of awesome folks, I hope you are really, really well. Building a desktop mic box helped a lot, to be honest. Yeah, look, there's lots of ways like to create your own space that's not going to have the reverberations. I've always said, soft furnishings, stick some blankets up, be around some couches and some curtains. Make sure you're not directly facing or parallel to a wall. It's why I talk into a corner, because even though it's not perfect, you don't get that direct bouncing. Whereas, and again, behind me is curtains and bed, which, being in a home studio, a bedroom studio actually works because it's got carpet and it's got bedding and it's got curtains. So for me, that's how I reduce. I don't remove, but I reduce the amount of reverberations. You'll hear that my audio is not perfect, but it's not bad. Lo-fi over here, I'll use noise gate, then add tape or vinyl noise. I know, how funny is that? That a lot of the time we do that, don't we? You go to all this effort to get this pristine, crystal clear digital audio, and then you throw some tape saturation or some vinyl crackle over the top to make lo-fi. It's funny. It always makes me laugh. Hello, B-A-C. I generally edit out the dead space, but I'm recording voice and guitar most of the time. If I was doing a band, then I might not, because heavy guitar could bury it. Yeah, absolutely. Good, very good point, and it really does depend. I forgot about you. I didn't forget about you. I'm moving a bit slowly here, so I apologize. I apologize. We will get to everything. G'day, Mark, bro. We're here for a couple of hours. Like, if you're in a hurry, I'm sorry. I'll jump to your question shortly. I promise you. But no, I haven't forgotten about you. Yes, hello to Jade. Great interview that Jade just did on her channel. If you want to check out her regular Friday morning or Thursday afternoon, depending where you are, interview series. She's about 91 interviews in now. I've been interviewed. A lot of other folks. I think Manny from the Lily Pillies has been interviewed. Brad Example's been interviewed. There's a heap of cool folks, and you can find out all about what is going on over there. The vocal synths put breaths in. There you go. See, Gregory O'Sullivan is the master of the AI, the artificial intelligence vocal synths, and if they put breaths in, then it's good. Hello, Vidal and the Shadowy Figures. Haven't seen you for a really long time. Hope you are doing well over there. We're going to have a quick cough and a quick drink, and then we're going to move on. Exactly. Room treatment is to tame a room, not deaden it. And people get confused by this. We'll have a drink. People get confused. They think of soundproofing. They think of the old days of like the sitcoms where they'd soundproof the garage by putting like egg cartons on the walls. That's not anything to do with sound treatment. That's soundproofing. And soundproofing and sound treatment are completely different things. Soundproofing is to stop your neighbours from calling the cops when you're jamming on some chords at 1 o'clock in the morning. Whereas room treatment is the process of creating a space that's going to give you a better sounding recording by mostly reducing reflections and reducing the buildup of frequencies in parts of the room. And again, the simplest ways to do that are usually to make sure that you don't have as many reflections as possible. Lots of soft stuff around you. It doesn't have to be super complex, but you can use things like the panels, you can use bass traps in your corners, you can do a lot of things. You can spend hours and thousands of dollars, or you can just try some different spaces. Trial and error is often the best thing. And the great thing about being a mobile creator and using an iPhone or an iPad or a MacBook or a laptop is you can go to a different space. So I've always, for many, many years, I've said the walk-in robe is, or your built-in cupboard where you store your clothes is great. They work really well because you're surrounded by softness, and it is a more of a dead space. But again, don't be afraid. I record in this room sometimes because I kind of like the reflections. I like some of that room noise because it gives you a little bit of natural reverb. So don't discount it at all. Thank you, Prince. I love doing them. When I stopped doing I used to do a show called Home Studio Q&A, which was a podcast way back in the day, and then I did the what was the show called in between? The Creator Town Hall, and now I do these more ad hoc. But it just means that we get to have a relaxing time. We got time to do it now. Speaking of time, I do want to get to the question from J Rock Nurse, who says, if I'm using GarageBand, how do I get the guitar to sound like I'm strumming? Yeah, if you've been around the channel for a while, you'd know that I kind of all the things I love about GarageBand, and there are many, one of the things I really don't love is the virtual guitar, because it has not changed since GarageBand 2.0, and all that they've added is a few different guitar sounds. So if you've never used a guitar before, if we come in here, you can see we've got the acoustic, you've got the classic clean, you've got the hard rock, you've got the retro wah, and you've got the roots rock. So for your acoustic guitar, you can get a strumming sound by literally just... But the hardest thing to get with a virtual guitar is a real strum pattern. Like say you were trying to... Because this is the problem. When you're actually strumming a real guitar, there's variation in there, and you can get the upwards and downward movement. Whereas here, when you go... That's like going from top to bottom, and that's from bottom to top, but... Like short of just kind of strumming your finger like that, it is really difficult to do. Not impossible, but quite difficult. The autoplays are pretty good. So with autoplay, if we set autoplay 1 on here and tap with one finger, or if we tap it again and tap with 2 fingers, so you've actually got 4 different strumming patterns from 1, 2, 3, and 4. So let's just go to like a G. Just going to turn this up a little bit so we can hear the guitar a little better. Come back to our guitar. So if we just tap, say, a G. Nice, yeah? Or if we tap with 2 fingers, you can get some nice sounds in there. And if we tap with 3, and again, you've got sort of... The strums tend to be more finger picky style, but then when you choose, say, like the go to the hard rock guitar, you're going to get a different kind of strumming style. So that's probably the key to this, is to try some of the different styles. To manually program in strumming on a virtual guitar, I find really difficult. The other thing you can do is go to your loops. So there's a couple of ways. You can use your guitar loops that you have here within Apple Loops. So if we come in here and we search guitar, there's a few guitars, not a heap, but there's a few guitars. You can go with like this one. Yoo-hoo! All right, come on. So that was pretty cool. There's the Better Together chords that sound quite nice. A little more of a process guitar. And you've got some more lo-fi kind of guitar sounds. You've got some disco funk. And this one that's used way too often, the down with it funk guitar. You would have heard that in songs before. So that's another way to go. The other option you have is to not only just limit yourself to GarageBand, but to use something like freesound.org. Now, freesound.org is only one place, but it's a pretty good place where you can actually get some royalty-free samples. So if you just go to freesound.org here, I just need to log myself in. Let me just hit the login button here so it doesn't show you my password. So once you've logged in, it's free to join. Once you've logged in here, you can... I need one of those t-shirts. I say that every time. I need to get a free sound t-shirt. You could just go, say, guitar strum in your search box here, and you can actually find yourself. So Crowded House-ish remix. So this sounds interesting. Let's take a listen to this and see what this sample sounds like. to skip further. Pretty cool, yeah? So you can play around with that, and you can see over here, this work is licensed under the non-commercial license for Creative Commons, which means you can use it as long as you're not using it in a commercial release. Now, if you want to make sure that the sounds that you find can be used, you need to actually come down here to the, where is the search box? There's a way to, I haven't done this in a really long time, but there's a way to filter it when you've searched. Maybe we just need to do this. Let's just go guitar strum again. Yeah, here it is. So attribution, you want Creative Commons 0 if you want to make sure that you can use it for free in everything you do. Because if you've got attribution or if you've got non-commercial, it means you have to go to the effort of like attributing it to the original artist, or if it's non-commercial, you can't use that sample if you're going to say release it with DistroKid. But with some of these, oh, that's a very short strum, but yeah, so strummed electric guitar. Pretty cool. So yeah, so you can use some of those free sounds in your tracks and give yourself some cool variety over there. And I guess part 2 of your question there, how do you make electric guitar programs sound like strum? Yeah, it is really difficult. There's some really good guitar sims, but they're not for GarageBand, they're not for iOS. I haven't found a great guitar. Is there one called Strummer? There's the Riffler. I know that has some good stuff in there. Jade Star, if she's around, will be able to point you towards the best for iOS. But if you go, say Creative Source Virtual Guitar, I can never remember the name of the company that make them, but it is these ones here. So over here, so there's a UJam Virtual Guitar. There's I can't remember the name of the one, but there's heaps of VST guitars. So if you're using Windows, there's a bunch of cool guitars. And one of Mike over at Creative Source's best and most popular videos is how to make exactly that, how to make VST, how to make your virtual guitars realistic. So I'll give a shout out to Mr. Mike at Creative Source if you want to go and check that one out. Lily Pillies, I'll get to your question in a moment. There you go. Riffler is good for creating riffs. And Ample Sound, there you go. Ample Sound for your Mac or your PC is the very best one that you can get, in my opinion, what I've had. I'm just scrolling up here. I'm using Apple. Yeah, so if you're using a Mac, you got good options. If you're using iOS, it's a little bit more of a barren field of things. Carpet, heavy drapes, and recording in the corner works out okay. Yeah, exactly. Spot on. It doesn't need to be rocket surgery, folks. Hello, Coldacre. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Did I get a message from you that I haven't responded to? Probably. I'm a rude bugger from way back. I'm going to scroll down. 4-pocket Strummer. Yeah, so the Strummer app is one that I've heard good things about. Mac desktop. Well, then you're pretty good. You can check out, say, the Ample Sounds. And even though it won't be exactly what you need, go to Creative Source. Check out Mike's videos about that one. About the Ample Sound guitars and some of the best ways to make realistic virtual guitars. Rena says I got a nice piano loop and some sleigh bells the other night. Yeah, nice. Yeah, freesound.org is great for effects and sound effects and just interesting little tidbits that you want to play around with. It is very, very cool. There you go. There's Jade's review of the Strummer iOS. See, I don't keep up with enough of what Jade does. Randy Matson says, I use a couple of different Shure dynamic mics for vocals with good results with a preamp. What might a recommended vocal recording microphone? I play through a Behringer interface to an iPad. So you've got Shure dynamic mics for vocals. With fairly good results with the preamp. What might be so yeah, people are going to sing along with me here because I've been recommending, there's 2 microphones I recommend for vocals. If you've got a really well-treated room or just like a nice quiet room where you're not going to pick up a whole bunch of background noise, I would recommend the Audio-Technica AT2 2020. Foggy brains, going to keep happening here, folks. So over here on the Gear Guide, studiolivetoday.com/gear, these are all of my recommended stuff. And if you go to my desktop setup, this is the one that I use here. Now, it was on sale. Let's see if it's back to regular retail price. It is. Unfortunately, you've just missed. It was $59 on Sweetwater and Amazon just the other day for Black Friday, which is the cheapest it's ever been. Let's see if it's still cheap over on Amazon. Might have missed the boat on this one. Yeah, back to $100. Look, it's still a great buy for $100, to be honest, but I know many folks jumped on and picked it up for 59 during the Black Friday sales. So that's if you're not worried about background noise, if you're not worried about your room and getting a whole bunch of sort of hiss and background noise in what you're doing. The other one I use is this one. Now, this is very similar to a Shure SM58. So if you've got a decent quality Shure, if you're using an SM58 or SM57, maybe stick with that. But this one is great, the AKG D5. It is just a super clean, it's a super cardioid pickup pattern. So it rejects background noise like nobody's business, which means if you've got a noisy environment, it's great for live, it's great for on stage, it's great for podcasting and spoken word, but it's also really good for vocals, especially if, like me, you're a big fat loudmouth and you have a loud voice. Having a dynamic microphone that's super cardioid pattern like this one can really help out. So the AKG D5 is my go-to dynamic. And I know I mention this every time, but yeah, we've got new folks here every week and every show, and I want to make sure that the right information gets passed along there. I think it's cheaper. Yeah, look at that. On Amazon right now is a great deal, $90.05. No idea why it's $90.05, but it's a great buy for $90. So if you're looking to invest in your recording setup, a dynamic microphone like the AKG D5 is almost a must in my personal humble opinion. Alrighty, Ample Sound has a free acoustic and bass. The rest are paid. There you go. Very cool. Good stuff. Go over and check that out. An Amplitude CS is free on iOS. Yeah, should be right. Yeah, that's the other thing you can do. So you can actually run different sounds into the guitar amps either directly just in GarageBand. So instead of using the virtual guitar, what I've tended to find works well is to actually use the guitar amps and then use the clean guitar sound and run them through an amp. You can even use things like ToneBridge or even Amplitude or any of the other free or even paid for Bias FX, any of those sort of amp sims that use AUV3 or even Interapp Audio. You can use those and you'll have success, at least a limited amount of success. Some success, not all success, some success. Yes, thank you, Thomas Christ. Yeah, there's all my gear recommendations I put there just for you folks. I recommend the EV RE330. Yes, look, there are so many different options. Like I'm not sold on any particular thing. I've told this story before, but my go-to headphones are the Sennheiser HD280 Pros. Jade Star bought a pair, didn't like them, didn't like the sound, didn't like the way they fit her head. That's totally cool. And that's what's going to happen sometimes. So you will need to try a few things sometimes and work out what works for you. And it's the same with microphones. Everyone's voice is different and everyone creates different music. So not everything's going to be the same. But yeah, the RE330, I'm just going to look it up here on Sweetwater and show you what this one is that Vidal and the Shadowy Figures recommends. So there's the 320. Do they have the 330? Maybe not. That's the RE320. But yeah, obviously Electro Voice EV make some quality microphones. They're not the cheapest in the world. That's the dynamic broadcast microphone. That's their answer to the Shure SM7B. But there is plenty of great microphones out there if you can spend anything from like $100 to $400 to thousands of dollars if you want to. Yeah, ToneBridge is super duper amazing. If you've never played with ToneBridge, go to your YouTubes, and I don't have time to demo it here because we've got other questions coming on in, but go to YouTube and just search my name, Pete Johns ToneBridge. You can see a whole 1 hour stream that I did a couple of years ago where I just did nothing but sampled tones and play around in there, or you can see the quicker version, the 5-minute version there, where I went in and showed you how to use ToneBridge on your iPhone and iPad. It blows people away. I was doing some private coaching with someone at one point, and they were like, I've never really liked the tone I get in GarageBand with the GarageBand amps. And I'm like, have you tried some amp stimulators? He's like, yeah, I've tried Amplitude. It's all right. And I'm like, you got to use ToneBridge. And even if you don't do any of the customization or any playing around with ToneBridge, if you just use the stock amps in there and the stock tones, just throw it. Like I was doing a rock song, and I just threw, you would have seen there, I threw a Pearl Jam tone on there, like a from Pearl Jam Alive. And it sounds just like that guitar. It sounds just like the lead guitar at the start of Pearl Jam. It is amazing. You got to check it out. And it's free. It's 100% free. So ToneBridge is the place to go if you need that. Alrighty. We've got more questions coming in. Hello, DJ Big Red. I hope you're doing well. I've tagged your question. We'll answer that in just a wee jiffy. And the Lily Pillies haven't forgotten about you. You are up next. It is the 320. Yeah, I wasn't sure if they did a 330, which is like, I thought they did like a condenser mic as well, but I could be thinking of someone else. Hello to Pooker Nugget. I love the names you folks have sometimes. It's awesome. Someone has reminded me the lawn needs mowing. Well, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. G'day, Robert. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, if you're having some fun, if you like the fact that I am healthy and can actually speak again now, and you want to throw some thumb love my way, there is a way to do that just down in the description. You can hit the like button. You can also share the show. So if there's other folks in the community or that you know or friends or family you think would benefit or may have questions or are always bugging you with their questions, say, look, Johns does these shows every week or two. So jump onto Studio Live today and in the nicest possible way, ask him, yeah, how good is the Lily Pillies hat? I mentioned it at the start, but Manny sent this one over from Sydney and it is awesome. So thank you. I love it. Like, you don't have to send me anything special, but if anyone's got a t-shirt or a hat, I'm more than happy to buy them. I do buy people's merch sometimes as well, but I will always wear it. Like I've got my Dangerous Giants. Not Dangerous Giants, Delicate Giants. I've got my Delicate Giants t-shirts that I wear regularly, and I've got a Delicate Giants hat now as well. Now I've got my Lily Pillies hat. I've got my Martin Brothers t-shirt I wear for a lot. So, yeah, PO Box 1111 Furl SA. If you've got stuff you want to send me, I'm more than happy to accept all freebies and offers that you want to send my way. Let's have fun mowing, Gregory. I hope you have a good time. It is cool, and hopefully, went out of focus there. Hopefully, Manny starts selling some merch because I totally wear a Lily Pillies t-shirt as well. I'm more than happy to buy one. Let's go to the questions because we've got some more coming in here. Speaking of Manny and the Lily Pillies, will I lose everything if I do the latest GarageBand update? I'm scared. No. You don't need to be scared, and you won't lose everything. So I was gonna cover this as a topic actually. So I might as well talk about it now. You're pretty safe to go to iOS 16.1.1. There were a heap of issues with 16.0. I did not recommend people go to 16 when it first came out. People went to 16. They were sad. Don't be like them. Don't be sad. Do what I say. And that is, don't go to 16. Don't go to updates until basically they've gone to the complete point one. At the one dot updates, you're usually pretty good. So at 16.1, it was fine. It's now 16.1.1 for iOS and iPadOS. You're pretty fine. I'm not hearing any tales of woe. I've updated most of my devices. I have no tales of woe. The thing that you want to make sure that you do, and this is fundamental, is always make sure you got some backups. And there's a few different ways you can back up if you've got GarageBand. And it's kind of similar on the Mac or on iOS. It's to not keep your stuff or your only copy of your stuff on my iPad. And the same goes for your Mac. Don't keep your only copy of your stuff on your hard drive. And GarageBand Mac is particularly annoying because its default location is just on your hard drive. Now, if you've got a Time Machine backup, you're okay there. But what I tend to do is when I start working on a project in GarageBand Mac, I'll actually save it directly to my iCloud drive location. That way it backs up automatically. And that way, if I have to completely reinstall my Mac OS or my hard drive crashes or anything like that, I don't have any problems. The same goes here. If I've got stuff stored in here, I've only got this one thing, just as an example thing. I always keep my Funk My Brass in here, which I kind of like actually. Yeah, it's time for GarageBand Weekly here on Studio Live today. Sounds like an intro, doesn't it? Sounds like a funky intro. I should definitely open with that. I'm doing a groovy baby. I'm doing all groovy songs on the happy hour this weekend. So maybe I need to work out some lyrics to go along with this cool little Funk My Brass track. Anyway, my point there was don't store anything just here. So if I really wanted to make sure I kept this, what I would want to do is I'd actually want to copy this and I'd want to bring it over here and put it on my iCloud drive in this location. Because what this does is it makes sure that it keeps everything. So I'd go in here to my ideas folder and I'd tap and hold and I'd paste it in here. And I've already got it there. So we'll stop doing that. So obviously I've already done this as an example previously. So everything is saved there. Now, Apple don't give you a whole lot of storage space there. So you may need to update your iCloud drive storage. Now, I don't recommend, there's not very many things that I say spend your hard-earned cash on, but if you're an Apple user, I gotta say, updating your iCloud storage is one of them. You're gonna pay a bit of coin. Let's come in here and look at the plans and pricing. It's not super cheap, but it's not super expensive either. So here's your pricing. So for most of you that are in the USA, If you update to 50 gigabytes, it's going to cost you 99 cents per month. If you upgrade to 200 gigabytes, $2.99 a month. 2 terabytes, which is what I have, $10 a month. So $120 a year. Now, for me, I run a business. This is my business. This is my livelihood. I pay for that because I need to make sure that every iOS device, because that's a good thing. iCloud Drive lets you back up your iOS devices, your iPads, your iPhones. It lets you store all of your files. It lets you back up all of your apps, app data and storage. So, and all of my iMovie projects, all my Logic files, all of my GarageBand files, they are all saved to the cloud. And for me, I pay, because I'm down here in Australia town, I pay $14.99, or at least I used to. Now I actually have the Apple One subscription. So that's the other thing you can do. The Apple One subscription includes your 2 terabytes, and you pay about I pay $42, I think, a month. And I get Apple TV, I get Apple Music, I get Apple Games, I get the 2 terabytes of storage. So that is something that I would recommend for most folks. And I know you're paying the Apple tax. I know you should get more for free, but you don't. And the reality is, do you want the situation where you've lost everything at the end of the day? Probably not. So hopefully that kind of answered your question, Manny. But no, you're pretty safe to do it. Just make sure you're not in the middle of a project. That's what I always say. Don't be right in the middle of a really big project. It's not the time to update. And make sure you have backed up. There's other ways to back up, of course. You can use USB drives. You can use things like, you can zip up your files. So you do have to zip up GarageBand files if you want to store them on somewhere like Google Drive or Dropbox or Drive or Box or all those places. There's a heap of different cloud storage options. Or again, you can just copy them over to another computer to have a local copy or a USB drive. There's options out the wazoo. Hello, Danny Gable. Thank you for dropping on by. Hope you are well. Yeah, I know we don't get any ear squish going on here. I know Cold Acre's always happy when I wear my hat that I can get the ear squish, because I kind of look like I'm about to take off like Dumbo. So no. So if I wear this one out, I'll have to make sure I sunscreen up the ears a lot. I've lost everything once. I'll be brave. Yeah. Back up. And then once you finish backing up, back up again. Because yeah, it happens. Like iOS updates are notorious for, that 1 in 1,000 that you might end up being, that 0.1% of the time where it just wipes out everything. You don't want that to be you. But if everything is saved on iCloud Drive, even if you lose everything, you can restore your backup from iCloud Drive, and then you can restore all of your files. They will pop straight back up like magic, and it would be awesome. Do you move all GarageBand files to iCloud and eliminate from iPad? Yes, I do. So as you would have seen there, Randy, I don't leave anything on my iPad. There's really no need to. It would only be, when I used to only have the 50 gigabytes, I had to be a bit more careful how I managed things. So I would only move a small amount of things over to the iCloud Drive, and I would keep most things on my iPad. But then that was the days when I'd make sure that my iPad was synced to iTunes on my PC, so that I knew I had a backup copy, and I'd copy them over to the PC as project files as well. And I'd also zip them up and throw them onto Google Drive. So when I didn't use iCloud Drive, I had a number of different ways that I would back up my projects if I was working on them, if I just had them here on my iPad location. But these days, with the extra storage, there's really no need to not store everything on iCloud Drive. It stores them locally as well anyway, if there's space, so it's not any slower. It just means that in the background, it'll constantly be sending any new updates to the cloud and downloading any new updates. And it's actually great, because if I'm using my iPhone and my iPad and my Mac, I can have access to all those files. So for instance, if I'm working on something on the Mac, I just save it to the iCloud Drive, and say I've got a master that I want to then go and listen to on my iPhone, it's right there in the Files app under iCloud Drive. So I can just grab that WAV file, download it onto my phone while I'm walking around, listen to it on my AirPods, take my notes, come back and redo it. Especially great for final mixes and things like that. iCloud can be finicky though, has caused me headaches, especially. Now, yeah, I say all that, and then the challenge with iCloud Drive is there is no way to tell. iCloud Drive, like most things, the infuriating things with Apple things is that they control things. You don't have control over what to do, which is great for most people and great for most scenarios. 99% of the time, you just want Apple to do it for you. You want them to hold your hand. You don't want the issues and the hassles. But the one thing that iCloud Drive won't let you do is say to a device, okay, don't keep any of this on your local storage, but just keep anything you use on iCloud Drive, just keep it on iCloud Drive. And the reason that's a pain in the ass is this. I have this 16 gigabyte iPod Touch, which I love because I can take this with me. I can access my GarageBand projects. I can access my audio files. Everything is on here. But every time I download a GarageBand project or every time I download an audio file, I can't delete it from here. I have to wait for my storage to fill up and it to automatically offload those different files before I get my storage back. So instead of me being able to actively manage the storage on my smaller devices by saying, use iCloud Drive, but don't download anything, I can't do that because the risk is if it downloads it to my iCloud Drive on my iPod Touch, and then I'm like, oh, I've got to free up a gigabyte on my iPod Touch, I'll delete it. It deletes it from everywhere, which is just stupidness. It's a pain in the rectum. So what I end up having to do it is, here's the weird thing. If I've got something there, I'll download a copy to the hard drive on my Mac, delete it from my iPod Touch, which deletes it from iCloud Drive, then re-add it to my iCloud Drive, making sure I don't re-download it on my iPod Touch. It is an absolute pain in the ass, and if there was just that one tick box, this is where you just need these tick boxes. It's like GarageBand. We need the tick box. Do not auto-normalize. I do not want you to do this for me. We need that tick box on iCloud Drive, which is do not ever download anything to iCloud Drive, or just a simple one that says, when I delete from iCloud Drive on this device, leave it on the server. Every other platform has leave it on the server. Do not delete it from my iCloud Drive. So as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about that one, and it's a pain in the rectum. Hello, Sam's Chronicles. Hope you are doing well. Yeah, that's the problem. It's ridiculous. It just downloads everything. You can't do it. It's no good. My ears are squished because I'm a grown-ass man. I should do a part 2. I know, I thought about that. I thought about building upon the grown-ass man thing. Hello, Bubba. Thank you for dropping on by. I hope you are doing well, my friend. I'll see. Have we got any more? You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for asking the question. It's good to have that. It's good to have questions. I'm grabbing some more questions here. I'm grabbing Sam's question. Rena's got a question. Nandram, is that a question? Yep, I'll tag that one. So I'll just make sure that I'm grabbing all these questions. Ooh, I just finished setting up a Taylor GS Mini. I now understand why you like yours so much. Beautiful sounding instrument. Yeah, I love the Taylors. I love my Taylor. I love all Taylors. And the Mini GS are actually really nice, aren't they? They're very good. I haven't missed your question. Well, I have missed your question, but I've tagged it. I've tagged your question. Grown Ass Man, a rock opera concept album. There you go. About the growing up of a man. There you go. Speaking of grown, who did the animation? Of the lyric video? Yeah, that was me. It wasn't super fancy stuff, but I did the animation. Grown lyric video. So if you're referring to this one, whoops, I've pressed the wrong button. If you're referring to this one, so I've done 2 videos. I did my official music video, which is the one of me walking at 4 times the speed, and then this lyric video one here. This is just this dude, and he just literally walks across here and does his thing. My favorite part is the little devil that pops up here.
Please take me.
So all of that was done in Canva and LumaFusion. So I basically created the background in Canva with, that was sort of the album artwork. I created a transparent PNG of this dude and then used LumaFusion to just make him slowly transition across, and then did the same with this little devil dude. I just used the keyframes to make him do his little dance back and forwards, and then used it again to make him ladder off at the end.
So I quietly creep up.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and then of course using the text in there, which takes a long time to do that in LumaFusion. It's not fun, but the end result works pretty well. So yeah, it's good times. Yes, that's what I used. I used Canva and I used LumaFusion for the video editing. Question: what is the best guitar plugin? I want a guitar plugin that sounds natural. Yeah, for iOS, there's not much. For iOS, the best guitar plugin is go to Discord and say, "Hey, guitarists, can you record this riff for me, please?" Or go to the Create, Record, Release Facebook group, or go to the Patreons, or yeah, there's a bunch of different forums. And to be honest, the reason I don't faff about, I'm a guitarist, so I kind of get a bit of a win there. But similar to with things like violin, when I want a violin sound, I know that Dan Baker is an amazing violinist and he's a nice dude, so he'll usually, like the couple of times I've needed violins, Dan's been able to provide those. So there's plenty of folks out there, and there's lots of give and take stuff. There's probably someone that wants some epic vocals, some epic female vocals on their track, Princess, and You probably want some cool guitar on your track. So yeah, trade. Let's barter. Use the communities and get stuff done there. So yeah, I don't think so. Tonebridge, in terms of what you'd use, what I use in iOS, I love Tonebridge because it's just the best. Like, it's easy and simple to add. It's AUV3. You can throw any tone at it, whether it's a guitar tone or a loop or a MIDI sound or whatever, and just add Tonebridge. So Tonebridge for the win for your realistic guitar sounds. We are at the midpoint, so if you're watching on the replay, we are going to take a quick break, and now we're back. See, the magic of being here live is you don't always get those ads. You don't have to go and see an ad for, what do you reckon it was, Skillshare, Masterclass, Apple, something like that. Oh, did you see, speaking of Apple, we'll start the second half with this, and then we've got a bunch more questions. DJ Big Red, Ruick, Nandram, Rena, and Sam's Chronicles. I've got your questions tagged and ready to answer. Yes, it is live, but unfortunately we have more questions coming in than I can keep up with. So I do appreciate your patience there. Yeah, the Swarm strings are about the best plugin I've heard. I've never used any of the Swarm apps, to be honest, but I've seen most of Jade Starr's videos on the Swarm apps, and amazing virtual sounds, like next level virtual sounds. If only they did guitars, that would be cool. Mark Bro, and collabs are always fun. Yes, exactly. Collabs are always fun. Did you see Twitter lately? Holy dooly. So if you missed the drama, the tweet drama that happened in the last sort of 3 days. So for those that don't know, like I know most of you do know this, a bloke called Elon Musk, yeah, he's the PayPal guy. A lot of folks forget that he was one of the founders of PayPal. They actually kicked him out of PayPal because he was such a dick. No, it was not quite that, but they paid him out of PayPal. But he was like one of the original founders of PayPal. That's why he wants to make Twitter like a payment platform now, like WeChat is in China, because he used to be the PayPal guy. Anyway, he's a billionaire. The Tesla guy, yeah, electric cars, yeah, shooting rockets into space with SpaceX. I'm not going to debate the fact that he's done some good things, or at least he's been around. So a bit like Kanye West. So he's been around good things and had a lot of yes people telling him how great he is. Anyway, he bought Twitter. It was a bit of a joke that he wanted to buy it, but he ended up spending the money and buying it for like, I don't know, 420 billion or something. He's always got something to do with 420 because he's a 14-year-old boy, apparently. So he bought Twitter, and then the advertisers, because he started doing some really silly things, he fired 3/4 of the workforce, including their content moderation team. He brought back on controversial figures because freedom of speech. Freedom of consequence, apparently, as well. So he started doing some really weird things. And not surprisingly, a lot of advertisers jumped ship real quick. So a lot of the big companies that were advertising are like, yeah, we need this like a hole in the head. So they jumped out. So Twitter not only now has no staff, has very dodgy users coming back on board, and now it has lost about half of its advertising revenue. So going great over there. But during the week, he basically called out Tim Cook, the Apple CEO, and because Apple pulled their ads. Apple said, yeah, we're out of here. See ya, sunshine. So Apple pulled their ads. And yeah, Elon Musk tweeting it at Tim Cook saying, do you not like freedom of speech? Are you against, do you think, and again, so America-centric. He's like, America's all about free speech. America's all about freedom. Do you not believe in these things? And I'm like, the hypocrisy of saying that. You're saying, yeah, it's all about freedom. A private company chose to not spend money with you. That's the very definition of freedom. It's their money. They can choose to spend it wherever they want to. Anyway, it's all ended well. Apparently, Elon and Tim got together and talked billionaire to billionaire and got their differences sorted out. Because Elon also thought that Apple were going to remove the Twitter app from the iPhone. And he was furious about that until he realized that was not ever what they were intending to do. So anyway, that is, yeah, Bubba don't tweet. Bubba was ahead of the times. Bubba don't tweet. You should completely not tweet. Elongated muskrat. There you go. Exactly. I can't find them on the App Store. What? Where are they? Where's the Twitter? I don't get it. I don't get it. All right. That's all. I promised not to. I just wanted to get that off my chest, and then we'll move back to music now. But I did think it was funny that, that of all the people, it's Apple they're going after. And you know what? I'm not the most savvy business person, but I'm pretty sure that if the wonderful folks DistroKid chose to say, "Oh, Johns, look, we need to pull our sponsorship," me going on a tirade against them and telling them that don't they like freedom? Don't they like how America has so much? Like, yeah, it's usually not a great idea to bash your biggest sponsors in the hope that they'll come back. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. Yeah, companies have to maintain a level of character, or forget it. And yeah, you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta be have some convictions, have strength in your convictions. So I believe in that. But yeah, going about it a very, very weird way. There you go. There's the Swarm instruments already on iPad. Yeah, so they're not available on iPhone. Keep that in mind. Let's get back to questions, shall we? We've got this one from DJ Big Red. How long is it going to take to finish Battlefield just this year? So we got some insider chat here about that's cool. I don't have to answer that question. Princess LDG can go ahead and answer that. And if you want to have some nice banter and some chatter with some cool folks, jump on over to the Discord. So studiolivetoday.com/Discord. Join the Discord server, or if you're a Facebook person, go to createrecordrelease.com and join us over there on the Facebook group. It is good, fun times. If Logic Pro 10 is a 100 out of 100, what would iPhone GarageBand be when it comes to features? What a great question. That's a really interesting. So let's say that Logic Pro is perfect. It's not. But let's say that Logic Pro has all the features, has everything you need. GarageBand. So it's an interesting one because so many of the features are stuff that so few people would use. So GarageBand Mac is probably 20 out of 100 compared to 100 out of 100, meaning that there's probably 5 times more things you can actually do. If you count every virtual instrument, every different plugin, every different routing option, every different busing option, everything you have in Logic Pro, there's probably 5 times as many things, meaning if Logic was 100, GarageBand Mac would be a 20. And by that logic, GarageBand iOS is like a 10, because there's probably twice as many things you can do in terms of automation of effects, in terms of other things. I can't think on the top of my head. Not auto-normalizing. Simple things like that GarageBand Mac can do. So maybe it'll be 15. So maybe GarageBand iOS is 15, GarageBand Mac's 20, and Logic is 100. Here's the thing though. In terms of what most users will practically use in Logic compared to GarageBand Mac, I actually think it's more like 75, 100. So in terms of, I think that most people will find just some of the features in Logic Pro, the sound designers and the amp designers, maybe some of the busing options and routing options you might use a little bit, maybe some of the different virtual instruments or the loop library and sample library, maybe things like live loops in Logic that GarageBand Mac doesn't have. So yeah, I think it really depends on what you're using it for. And that's why I say to a lot of folks, before you move from GarageBand to Logic, master GarageBand. Know everything GarageBand can do. Go over to the GarageBand guide and check out everything that Patrick has said about GarageBand Mac and learn it all, because there's no point moving up until you've actually reached a point where you need to. The thing is, people think, I'm going to go to Logic because my music's going to sound better. Here's the problem with digital. Whether you are recording on a $200 iPod Touch or a $5,000 MacBook Pro running Logic, it's digital audio. So if I'm inputting it from my Steinberg interface, it's still 24-bit, it's still 44.1 kilohertz audio. And that's being recorded using an analog to digital converter through whatever microphone and whatever thing I'm using to record with. So it's going to be the same audio. It's the exact same ones and zeros, whether it's on my iPod, my iPhone, my iPad, my Mac, my PC. And this is where people get themselves all tripped up and caught up in the whole mine is better than yours, mine's bigger than yours, let's all whip it out contest, which, let's be honest, that happens online all the time. The problem is that it depends, and not only does it depend, it really doesn't matter. So it's weird. There's people having these arguments about something where they're trying to be 100% like definitive when it's not definitive, it's variable, and even if it wasn't variable, it's kind of the same. There's not much difference. So yeah, it kind of makes me laugh when people go out of their way to defend the honor of their thing, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Jacob Collier has a cool video tutorial on how he records on Logic. I don't have Logic, but it was fun to watch, especially his method of stacking vocals per note. There you go. That's cool. You're welcome. Because I'm thinking of buying a Mac and have been using GarageBand my whole music career and always found it's efficient. And that's the thing. That's the secret sauce of all of this. Unless you are finding things that you can't do then it's really not worth the extra, what is it, $200 US? It's $319, I think I paid for Logic. I paid for it just because it's my job and it's tax deductible and I use it because I need to work out how to do things. But I don't recommend unless you are hitting the wall and you're like, man, it would be really good if I could bust together all these vocals to one set of delay and reverb and then tweak that. Yeah, then maybe you want to do it. Thomas says one of the best things about Logic is the ability to stack the tracks and process them together. Yeah, great for lots of vocals and lots of guitar tracks. Yeah, so you can do things like folders, which you used to be able to do in Reaper when I used that. So track stacks is similar to a folder where it processes all of those using the same thing, similar to buses where you bus things to auxiliaries for things like reverb and delay and things like that. So there's your option. Mark says he uses GarageBand to sketch the songs and then finish in Logic, and that's another great thing you can do. You can move it there. The only problem is with 32 tracks per project. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Logic does reduce those limitations, so it will give you more flexibility in terms of that. Before we answer the next one, if you do have a question, if you're just joining us here or you haven't caught the first half, please just put a Q in front of your question. It just makes it easier for me to dig them out of the other comments from people answering other questions or having other things to say. So if you're just joining us, go ahead and ask your question. Just put a big Q. And it is Ask Me Anything. So music-related stuff's probably more relevant, but it can be anything. So if there's something burning question on the edge of your brain, then do ask. If you want to know what the weather's like here today, if you want to know my favourite flavour of chocolate, what chocolate bar I like best, or the best beer I've ever drunk, I don't know. Also, notice it went straight to food and drink. Says something about me. Speaking of drinks, let's have a drink. I've got a MacBook Pro, Student Bundle Logic Pro X HS8 audio monitors with Sun Aston Spirit mic, 4TB SanDisk hard drive, and a Cold TS3. What other equipment do you recommend I get? All right, so what have you got? You got the basics. You got microphone. You've got enough storage space to last you forever. You got some nice studio monitors, and you got Logic, and you got a MacBook Pro. You kind of got everything you need, and it's interesting. It kind of depends what sort of music you're creating. I love a MIDI keyboard. I don't see a MIDI keyboard amongst your stuff there, even if you're not a keyboard player. A small form factor, depends on the size area you have, but a small form factor MIDI keyboard can actually be great for entering stuff. And you might think, oh, but I play guitar and I sing and I don't really need a MIDI keyboard. Just adding in, like, experimenting with some bass lines, or you're adding in some piano just for a bit of variety or something else, or doubling up on bass by using a real bass and electronic bass as well. Having a MIDI keyboard can just make things a whole lot easier to program in rather than be sitting there click, 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 trying to actually program it in manually. So I recommend the M Audio Keystation. They're my favorite little MIDI keyboards. So if you go to the Studio Gear Guide, studiolivetoday.com/gear, I like this one here. This is the M Audio Keystation 49. Now, this is a pretty big fella. It's over in the cupboard over there, so I can't bring it out here, but it's about... what size? How long would it be? Not quite a meter, maybe like 80 centimeters long. And but it's a great little unit. 49 keys, touch sensitive, just got a simple USB and sustain pedal input there. You've got your standard controls there with your modulation wheel and pitch bend wheel. You've got volume controls, you've got octave controls. You can, and it's $119, so it's not the cheapest, but if you just need something smaller, like if you've got space restraints or space constraints and you want something smaller, I actually really dig the little fella. Where is it? Where are you, little tacker? There it is. For $59, you can just grab a little 32 key version like this. And this is great to just have on your desktop to if you just got an idea, you just throw it in there. You just throw a chord in there or use it for arpeggios. So yeah, and that's a good deal at the moment, $59 for the M Audio Keystation Mini 32 Mark III, a 32 key controller. So that's one thing. Good pair of headphones if you don't have some good monitor headphones. So I use and recommend the Sennheiser HD280 Pro. AKG make good ones, as do Audio-Technica, as do Sony. But you want something that's going to be a monitor headphone. So I use these ones because they're just super flat. Oh, they're a good deal at the moment. Look at that. $79. They're actually $20 off. Usually you can't get them for much less than $100. So they're a good set. And after that, yeah, there's really not a lot else you need in terms of your studio setup. So if you look at my desktop setup, I've got my Mac there. I've also got a MacBook Pro. I've got a USB Thunderbolt drive. A mixer is a great option if you're doing live stuff. So I'm going through this right now. This is how I can have the desktop. I can have my iPad sound. I can have my microphone. I can plug my guitar in if I want. I use a mixer. That's the wrong one. I clicked on the wrong button. I use this one here, the Zoom Live Track L8, which is a good deal at the moment, only $350. I know Thomas Christ is using this one now. It's a great little mixer. So mixer is a great option if you want to go past sort of using the audio interface and you want to do more live applications. I would recommend that. But then, yeah, there's my AT2020 microphone we talked about earlier, Keystation 49, a powered hub. So just things. I use a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. I also use a Steinberg UR22C as another interface. Webcam if you're doing live stuff. There's my guitar. And a good quality mouse and keyboard. This is probably underappreciated how important it is to have a decent quality mouse and keyboard. I've been using this for over a year now, the Logitech. I love Logitech mice and keyboards. It's a right-handed mouse, so if you're lefty, you need to look for something else. But this is great because it has it's Bluetooth, and you can set up for 3 different devices. So I can easily switch between my Mac and my iPad using the Bluetooth just by the press of a button there. I can suddenly connect it up to 3 different devices. And it uses USB as well if you want a more reliable connection. It has that standard USB, the little dongle, what do they call that? The Anywhere dongle. But yeah, just nice travel on these, just a nice keyboard. Look, if you're a gamer, it's not like the mechanical keyboard that you might want there, but yeah, you're going to spend so much time, especially if you're using Logic Pro on, and even if you're using a laptop. Maybe a docking station and plugging into a monitor might be a good idea, and then using a mouse and keyboard, because your touchpad and your little keyboard that you have on your laptop is not always going to be the most ergonomic and the most comfortable for you after a while. So hopefully that gives you some ideas and some things to think about there. Alrighty, and this, as always, Thomas is right there with that the recommendations there. Let's see. Hello, DJ Lion Mix King. Goodbye, DJ Lion Mix King. Hope you're well. Thanks for dropping by, Rook. Hope you are doing well, and thank you for that. I got some plugins for Logic, and they're all bad. Oh, bummer. Well, maybe you need to go find some good plugins. Righty. I'm just going to tag all of these. All right, I'm going to. I feel left out as a Windows user, so I have Studio One and Pro Tools. Maybe one day I'll be a grown-ass man and get an Apple system. It's fine. You don't have to. It's not a requirement around here. I know people think I'm a giant Apple fanboy. I'm really not. I used to not use Apple. By the way, thank you, Rook, for the super chat. Yeah, that is another option. I don't talk about that on these sort of shows very much, but if you do, if you're having some fun, if you get some answers, if I help out, feel free. You can throw a super chat or a super sticker right here on the YouTubes if you so desire. We got some more questions. I've tagged yours, Rad Tech. I've tagged yours, Jade Star, and I've tagged yours, Mark Bro. So thank you for your questions, and we'll crack on with them. Let me just check my topic list if there was anything I needed to talk about. We've talked about those two. We talked about iPad OS. So with Manny and the Lily Pillies, it is probably time. You don't have to. My dad called me this week, and he's like, "Do I have to update your mother's iPad to 16?" And I said, "Not really. 15.7.1 is still secure. iPad OS 16 doesn't really have any features, definitely nothing that my mum's going to use. So if you don't want it, if you don't need it, don't update it. So I'll tell you, I'll make sure that you know once there's a security issue. But right now, iPad OS 15.7 is still very secure. And I know because I still have to run it on my iPad Air 2 because it'll be forever, because it won't get updated. So do keep that in mind. Did you know that YouTube dislikes have been gone for over a year now? We didn't think we'd survive, did we? So if you don't know what I mean there, when you go to a YouTube video, you can dislike it, but it doesn't actually show. So if you come over here, if you really didn't look, I like my own because that's just the kind of guy I am, but if you really didn't like this and you dislike it, it shows up like that. But it doesn't show you how many dislikes there are. The only way to know is, as a creator, you have to go into your back end. Let me try that again. You have to go into your back end and take a look, which I just don't do anymore. And look, I thought this wasn't going to be a great thing because I thought we want to be able to dislike videos on YouTube so that it can tell the algorithm not to present more like that in the future. But here's the thing. You don't actually need that. And I'm going to give you a quick tip here that if you're on YouTube and you're finding things that you don't want to watch. So, for instance, my children jump in and they watch things. As you can see, this is a very weird, eclectic mix of things. But so I want to know. I want to be notified of this one here when Jade Star's premiering something with Brad example. But what you can actually do here is you can say not interested or don't recommend this channel. And this is what I would suggest you do. Train your algorithms, folks. Come in here. I'm like, I don't really want some Norris Nut stuff on here. So I'm going to say, don't recommend this channel. It goes away and then it's not there anymore. Whereas this one here from Thomas Christ, I want to come in here and I want to report it. No, I want to come in here and like it. So if you like things, it'll train your algorithm that you're actually liking things. So I'll leave that open there because if I close out of that now, Thomas won't get the watch time. I don't want him to get 1 second of watch time. So you can do things like that. Come down here. I don't even know what that one's about, but let's just say I didn't want that one. I can come here and I can go not interested. So you can go not interested, or if you definitely don't want to ever see the channel anymore, you can don't recommend channel. If it's something actually offensive, you can report it. And the reason I say to do all that is that it's going to mean that the recommendations you get and even the ads that run are going to be more relevant. If you've ever found that you're getting really stupid ads, it's probably because you haven't trained your algorithm. And if you want privacy and you don't want to do that, and you're more than happy to just have the random ads for stupid reality shows instead of, something you might be interested in, then that's fine too. But it's a good way to do that, and I just wanted to point that out because you really don't need the dislike button. And sometimes it's okay to scroll past, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Welcome back. Just had to do something. Well, we should all do something. The Wave sale has been extended. So the Waves plugins are still on sale. There you go. Hello, Jeff S. Hope you are doing well. Some great sales on plugins. Yeah, have a look around. Have a look around at some great sales on some plugins and some other things going on at the moment. So, and from now right through to the end of the year. What do they call it? They call it Cyber Month. So November is usually like Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but all of November was basically Cyber Month, and now we're in December. You're going to get all the deals. You're going to get all the cool deals there. YouTube dislikes were like tearing a phone number off a puppies for sale sign on a grocery store bulletin board and calling to tell them you don't want any. It's so true. It's so true. It's so unnecessary. Because just scroll past. Like, you can vote with your feet, vote with your eyeballs, vote with your feet. If you don't like something, you don't need to tell the world that you don't like it. We get it. You don't like it. It's fine. Move on. Scroll past. All that. All right, let's grab some more questions. Because what have we got? We've got about 40 minutes left, so if you have more questions, throw them in the queue. We've got questions coming out from Rena, from Sam's Chronicles, from Radtech, from Jade Star, from Mark Barrow, from Thomas Christ. So let's dive into these now. We've got, so I'm looking for some good brass to do a Buble type thing. I know about iSymphonic. Does it come with the full brass? Has anyone used iBrass? The demo I saw sounds not that great. Has anyone used? So I think the Swarm app, this is what Jade Star was talking about before, the Swarm app. Swarm have brass as well as strings as well as other things. So they got horns and tubas, trombones, trumpets. They got the whole kit and caboodle over there. So I would go and search the name Jade Star and Swarm Brass and take a look and a listen, because Jade goes through in detail. Look at that. You've got 3 different bundles there, and Jade gives you a detailed view. If you've got 3 hours to spare, go and check it out. Or maybe just reach out to Jade and ask for her opinion on which one she would go for if you wanted that kind of sound. But yeah, it's definitely, from what I've heard, I don't do a lot of brass stuff, but from what I've heard, Swarm are the go-to brass app for your iOS needs. And I'm pretty sure that they're on Mac as well. So I don't think it's just for those that are on the mobile. It is Swam, S-W-A-M, like swam, but Swam. Swam, indeed. So go and check out Swam and look at Jade's videos. Sam's Chronicles says, I'm having problems when I mic up my drums through a 16-channel mixer and getting GarageBand to pick up the sound. It's driving me crazy. Yeah, so mixers can be a challenge with GarageBand. So there's a couple of things at play here, and I'll talk through some of the potential issues. So I'm assuming you're on a Mac. Maybe just want to, if you're still around, Sam, maybe just confirm that you are indeed on a Mac. If you're on a Mac and you're using a mixer, so I'm using the Zoom Live Track L8 mixer that we talked about before, and yeah, you do need to set it up really carefully. So if you've got a drum kit that's going in, you first of all need to make sure that your inputs are set not as the stereo in, unless you just want to. So for me, I use my mixer basically as a mixer. I don't use it as a multi-channel interface because I'm normally doing stuff where I just want everything to be summed down. Like a live stream, I don't want to live stream just channel 1 and 2 because then you wouldn't hear other things. Excuse me. So I don't want to do just channels 1 and 2. I want my whole stereo mix to go through. So I select, I think on the live track it's channels 11 and 12. So you basically would need to go through and see which channels are which and make sure that each individual track is set to each individual channel. Now, there's a couple of things with a mixer. If it's a USB mixer, you may need to update the firmware. Sometimes you find that they get released with older firmware, and you'll have to check the manual of your mixer to find out what version of firmware it is. On the Zoom live track, you basically connect it up, and you can do like a software update of firmware, or you can do it using the SD card. There's a couple of different ways. And you also want to make sure that you're running the latest driver because and this was the problem with the Mac Mini M1 is that Zoom did not have a driver for the longest time. You might recall my chagrin back in the day. I had to switch back to my Samsung MixPad because it was class compliant, whereas the Zoom in its mixer and its multi-interface mode is not class compliant. It needs a driver. There wasn't a driver for the Mac M1s for the longest time. So yeah, that's that issue as well. So check your firmware, check your drivers, and then check your software settings in GarageBand. If you're using iOS, it's a little bit of a different thing because you need your mixer to be class compliant. So you need to be using a mixer or an audio interface that has multiple channels that is either class compliant or has a class compliance mode. So the Zoom live track, for instance, you can flick it over to class compliant mode, which is a driverless mode. It has slightly less features, but it means you can use it with an iPad or an iPhone. So if you're on GarageBand iOS, make sure that your mixer is set to class compliant mode, or for some mixers, for some higher end mixers, unfortunately, they need a driver to run, which means that they won't work at all on your iPhone or your iPad. So that's kind of my brain dump of all the information. But if you've got more specifics to it, maybe ask over on the Discord server, studiolivetoday.com/Discord, or jump over to the Facebook group, Create, Record, Release. There's good stuff over there. It's a MacBook Pro with the M1 chip, yeah. So that may be the problem, that you might need to make sure that you've got the latest version of the drivers for the particular audio interface you're using, and that will help you out. But yeah, it's a lot of it comes down to the firmware on the actual piece of kit, and then the software, which is the drivers that you're running, and making sure that you've got an updated driver. Yeah, and look, the block size. So there's other things like that you can choose, like your buffer size and your block size within GarageBand or within Logic. So go into your audio preferences and start experimenting and playing around with some of those things as well. Alrighty, let's grab the next question. I don't know why I'm speaking like that. What is your best plugins for mixing from RodTech? I said RadTech before because I like things to be rad. I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing back the word rad. Best plugins for mixing. To be very honest, I am pretty simple. Just in general, I'm pretty simple when it comes to mixing. I would recommend, if you search my name, Pete Johnson Mixing, these couple of videos, so the basics of mixing, that's like a 25-minute video where I take you through what plugins I use and how I actually mix. And I've got this one here, which is a shorter video, just 6 minutes, where I show the most important things. And really, people overcomplicate mixing sometimes because they ask this question. And look, I'm no shame against you because it's a very good question and it's a very common question. But the problem is when you say, what are the best plugins for mixing? For one, the answer is it depends. And number two, it's kind of backwards because you should be mixing your track and then going, this needs something, and then going and finding the right plugin for that, rather than saying, I need to throw these 3 go-to plugins on every mix I do, because you sometimes don't need anything. I know. The plugin manufacturers don't want me to say this. It's like one of those articles on BuzzFeed. It's like, yes, what is it? Plugin manufacturers are racing to Washington to block this one trick. No. But yeah, they want you to buy their plugins and do all the cool things and have all the bells and whistles. Whereas, as you probably saw from the screen there, the 3 things, volume, compression, and EQ, make up for 80% of mixing to me. Because remember, mixing is balancing your tracks. Mix engineers used to be called balance engineers, and they used to wear white lab coats, and they'd basically just sit there and they would balance the volume up and down because that's all they had. And then eventually stereo came out and they would balance the left and right, which all left and right is, all panning is how much volume's on the left and how much volume's on the right. So that's volume two. EQ, equalization, that's volume for an individual frequency. That's saying I want more volume in the high end, in the treble, and I want less volume in the bass. That's the same thing. It is just volume. And compression is a way to automate volume, to make sure that your volume is more level so that when you're singing, it's not going up and down. It's really just giving you that nice level feel. So basically, you could say that everything mixing is volume at the end of the day. Now, the sweeteners, they're things like your reverb and your delay and your stereo wideners and those sort of things. And there are some good plugins that I use, but most of them are stock, to be honest, because when I want some reverb, I want it to kind of sound like a hall. So I put a hall reverb on it, and then I put like 10% of each of my tracks to that reverb. And if I want a delay, I want a slapback delay. Okay, I'll put a slapback note of an eighth note delay on this, and I'll just use the stock delay for that. So again, it is a really good question. I don't want you to think, oh, John's is trying to avoid the question. But again, I think it's more about what you are trying to achieve. And then you can start asking the question. So you're like, so if you came to me and you said, I've got this song, but it sounds too clean. It sounds too digital. I need it to be a bit dirtier, a bit warmer. I would say you're probably looking for a saturator plugin. Why don't you try something like the Mixbox CS set that has some really good tape saturation plugins in it? Because that's kind of what you want. Or I just feel that my bass isn't pumping through. And I'm like, well, you probably need some EQ, or maybe you need some compression on your bass. So maybe you need something like the Rough Rider that's going to grimy it up a bit. Or maybe you just need a distortion plugin and just a little bit of distortion just to make it a little bit more real sounding and a bit less clean. So really it's more about asking the question of what are you trying to do? And then what do you need to do to get it done at the end of the day? You're welcome. Yeah, everything, and that's the thing. Everything costs money, so just use what you got to start with, and use things like freesound.org. Exactly, running out of sample packs. Freesound.org, my friend. Freesound.org is the place to go. You're very welcome. Yeah. Do go and check out. Go and check out all of that. When you're mixing, you want a higher one, and when you're actually recording, you want lower samples, generally. I think I got that the right way around. I often get it confused until I go and look at it. But hopefully that helps you out, Rod Tech, as well. So thank you for your kind questions. This is a great one from Jade Star. Question: what is your least enjoyable beer? This one's a bit controversial, and I'm gonna throw a mate under the bus here because I had my mate John, who came over all the way from Ireland, and we met up and we had some beers, and I had the Cooper's Pale because of course I did, and he was drinking a little beer that we have here in South Australia called West End Draft. Now, I don't know if it's because I grew up in the 80s and I was around a lot of like my uncles and people that were drinking West End Draft, and it just has this smell and this taste of a draft beer. When you walk into a pub, or you did back in the 80s, and you could just smell that stale beer and cigarette smell. It just reminds me of that. So my least enjoyable beer is a West End Draft. And weirdly enough, even though it's the least enjoyable beer, I actually drank West End Draft on the most enjoyable day, or one of the most enjoyable days of my life, which was my wedding day. Because if you know anything about sport here in South Australia, the beer companies sponsor a lot of the teams, and the South Australian cricket team are the West End Redbacks. They're literally sponsored by my least favourite beer. My favourite sporting team are sponsored by my least favourite beer. And when Georgie and I, my children keep picking me up because I say Georgie and me, and they're like, it's I or it's me. I get it wrong every time. Anyway, when Georgie and this guy got married, we got married at the Adelaide Oval. And guess what? Because the Adelaide Oval has a deal with Carlton United Brewery to own West End, and we could only get West End beer. So, yes, I sacrificed that to be able to get married in the location I wanted to. I had to drink cat's piss on my wedding day. So there you go. My least enjoyable beer story. Freesound.org. Yes, excellent. Thank you, Thomas. Yes, go to freesound.org. That is the place to go for your free sounds. Foster's is not great. Foster's is really ordinary, but everyone in America thinks we drink Foster's. But Foster's is not on tap, which means not a draft beer. You cannot get it anywhere here. You can buy it in bottles and cans at bottle shops, but it's kind of that one that's down the bottom of the fridge at the back that's all dusty because no one's actually bought it for a year because no one in Australia drinks Foster's. We send it to you to make you drink it. Yeah, West End is not great. So no shade on John for drinking the West End. If you like it, you like it. That's the thing. If a grown ass adult wants to pay money to buy a thing and then drink it and they like it, I got no issues with that. But for me, it's probably just the memories I have. It's not good. Yeah, Foster's is Australian for piss. Yeah, it's not Australian for beer. As we told you, we don't throw shrimp on Barbies and we don't drink Foster's. It's not Australian for beer. It's Australian for successful export industry. Truth. I like it. I like it when we get into these questions. When we get away from the music stuff for a little bit, it's always fun. It's always interesting to hear what you got. Question from Mark: I hate winter and you're going into summer. Got a spare room? Let me answer that by pointing behind me and showing you that as a full-time music education content creator, my studio's in my bedroom. That probably answers how much spare space we have around here. Yeah, no, I know. I do feel for you coming into winter because it's rough, especially in parts of the world where you folks are, where you have to deal with things like snow and snow plows and tires on your chains on your tires, and it's unimaginable for me. Here in Australia, we're finally getting some fine weather, but it has been a cold, wet winter. To the point where, with all the La Nina stuff and all the things going on, our main river here, the River Murray, is flooding at the moment. There are literally towns that are about to be underwater. And they've known this for a while. It's been happening, but there's nothing they can do about it. There's just masses of water there. You can't just pump all the water. It can't go anywhere. It just has to rise to the point where it's going to peak and then go away. So there are people whose houses are just going to be underwater for a couple of months because there's been so much rain. And it's almost like we have some sort of, international climate emergency going on. He says, without getting political, but actually doing it. Milwaukee's Best was a college staple beer. Talk about this. Yeah, I've heard that PBR, isn't Pabst Blue Ribbon, that was kind of like the beer that was so uncool because only grandpas drank it, but then the hipsters got onto it because they wanted to be uncool and they wanted to drink it ironically, that then it actually got really popular and now everyone's drinking PBR, like Pabst Blue Ribbon, because like non-ironically. Isn't it weird when people start doing things ironically and then they go off and they start to, I don't know. It's weird. Oh my goodness. I'll drink a Foster's and eat a bloomin' onion. It is so weird. So the bloomin' onion is an Australian delicacy. At least that's what the Outback Steakhouse will tell you. So if you're not in the US, you probably are not aware of a chain of restaurants called the Outback Steakhouse. And whenever my wife and I go to the US, and again we're hoping to get over there with the family next year, whenever we go to the US, we have to go to the Outback Steakhouse as an absolute must. It's a bit of a novelty. There's one in Las Vegas, up above the Casino Royale, which is there near the Flamingo on the Strip, and it's an experience when we go up there because we don't tell them that we're Australian. We just walk in there, and Americans can't tell accents, so they probably think we're British or New Zealander or something anyway. But the first time we went in there and we saw this thing on the menu, it's like, a bloomin' onion is an Australian delicacy where you take a whole onion and you split it out and then you coat it in batter and then you deep fry it and then you break off the bits and you enjoy it. And I'm just looking at my wife going, what the hell? Have you ever had a bloomin' onion in your life? And she's like, I think you know the answer to that. And it's really funny. And I think I've talked about it before, but the different steaks are like, it's a Rockhampton ribeye and it's a Perth porterhouse. And then there was the funniest one. It was like, it's a Melbourne strip steak. It's like, you didn't even try Sydney strip steak. Like, you just had to put Melbourne in there. And she's like, would you like the Melbourne strip steak? I'm like, no, thank you. But it was fun because Cooper's beer, which is the beer that I drink most of the time, it's an ale. So I hadn't had a good beer. I mean, I've been drinking Heineken's basically because that's my go-to US beer, which is weird because it's a Dutch beer. But in the US, especially in the casinos in Vegas, they'll usually bring you a Heineken's for free. And I'm like, hey, Heineken's good quality beer. You know what you're getting. If it's hot outside, it's usually a good beer to drink. So I just drink Heineken's. And then we went to this Outback Steakhouse and I saw that they had Cooper's Sparkling Ale, which is one of my favorite beers. But with an ale, you have have to basically, if it's in a bottle, you have to sort of turn the bottle on the side and roll it because there's sediment that settles in the bottom, and otherwise you get like a chunky snack at the end of your beer. No one likes that, so you need to mix it up. So yeah, you need to tip it, and the waiter or the person at the Outback Steakhouse did this like, now in Australia, their beers you have to really carefully do this. So they like chipped it, and it took them like about 10 seconds to put it down. They put it on the table and they rolled it, but they rolled it. It took them about 30 seconds, like a big like production to roll this beer, and then he picked it up and they got a glass and he really gently poured it down. And I'm like, mate, if you could see me at home smashing sparkling, because it's like 2 seconds, you're done. Outback, how to market a regular steakhouse as Australian. I know. And it's weird because you go to the door and it's like it's Dunnies and it's Sheila's and blokes, and it's like, oh man. Yeah, look, back in my meat eating days, I did like a bit of kangaroo every now and then. It's a very mean, very lean meat. Hey Pete, have you ever been blocked before? Have you ever beat blocked before? I don't even know what beat blocking is. Being beat blocked. No, I don't know what that is. Is that like a copyright thing, or is that like, no, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look up the definition of beat blocking. What is beat blocking? When beat makers lose inspiration and struggle to come up with something new, it's called beat block. Oh, there. So songwriter's block, writer's block. Yeah, I do. I've actually done whole videos on this, on getting songwriter's block. So if you search Pete Johns songwriter's block, and look, it's a little bit different for songwriters, I guess, to beat makers. But again, if you search Pete Johns writer's block, you're going to get, there's a couple there. So there's a few little tools and techniques that I've used over the years to get over that. I thought that meant that, like, if I've been blocked as in like someone's stolen my beat and I've been blocked, I've been locked out of my own beat. I don't know. But yeah, I normally do some speed thinking exercises. That's my best thing to say. Speed thinking is just, you get a topic, you put 60 seconds on the clock, and then you just write down as many words on that topic as possible, and then that becomes your idea. And if you're doing something instrumental, same sort of thing. Just give yourself a bit of a topic and some moods. So just say, what are some moods that I want to go with that are calm? So you want to make like a cool, laid back, calm beat. So you just go calm, you go chill, jazzy, want some smooth bass, I want some sparkly keys, and you just basically note down things and then try and turn that word pile into something creative. That's what I do anyway. PBR is delicious, and PBR is the hipster beer. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. There you go. All right, maybe I'll go buy some PBR today. You can actually buy it here in Australia. Red, exactly, red. PBR is better than Heineken. Well, there you go. I don't think they have it many places though, and I definitely don't want to accidentally order a Bud or a Coors. I've made that mistake before. I am still processing that you don't throw shrimp on a barbie. Yeah, no shrimp on barbies. If you have a barbie here, if you come to Australia and we have a barbie, well, don't have a barbie with me because I'm not a meat eater, so you wouldn't get anything particularly fun. You get a piece of corn and a mushroom. You'd be like, "Ugh." But if you go to a normal person's place and you have a barbie, well, you'll have sausages. There's always snags, and our sausages are not like your sausage patties. They're like the long sausages. So you have sausage in bread with tomato sauce. That's kind of the Australian staple. You usually have some chops, some sort of lamb chops, or maybe some beef chops on there. Some rissoles or some sort of like hamburger meat type things. That's pretty common. And usually chicken. So usually like some chicken shazliks or like chicken kebabs, like the sticks with bits of chicken on there. That's a pretty common thing on a barbie. And usually some onions and potatoes. So when you have your sausage in bread, you got to have some like fried onions, barbecued onions to stick on top with your tomato sauce. To the point where if you go to Bunnings, which is a hardware store here in Australia, they'll do a sausage sizzle. So every weekend there'll be some charity out there, and you'll go and you'll buy your sausage and bread with your onions. It'll be like $3. And there's families that literally just go to the hardware store for lunch because Bunnings will sell them a sausage and bread for $3 on the weekends. Pretty cool. Just tried to walk downstairs with my computer and I fell. That's terrible. Please don't fall. We don't want you to fall. Please be good. And yeah, we'll normally call them prawns. So if you do have shrimp on a barbie, it'll be some nice prawns. So you'll get some prawn skewers and barbecue those up on your barbie. Alrighty, good old fashioned sausage fest. You know it. All right, I've got a couple more questions left. We've got 18 minutes. Got some time to go here. Now I'm not sure if our buddy Mike over at Creative Source. I need to find out when he's doing his shows now because he's been varying his time of his live shows, and he maybe doesn't have one going on today. Maybe not. I can't see one anyway. So I don't think he's live today, or maybe he's already been live. We'll answer these couple of questions. So Thomas Christ, a wonderful moderator, hello to you. Nick Nimmin suggested on his StreamYard stream the other day, doing shorter live streams like 5 to 15 minutes is a great way to boost your channel. People like the lesser commitment, apparently. Thoughts? Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that and other things lately. And I'm thinking that that's actually something I'm going to try, because I didn't see that specifically, but I've seen similar things recently. And Sarah Newen, who's a YouTuber, fellow Australian YouTuber, does this really well, where she covers a topic and she does a live stream, and her format is actually really good. She hasn't been streaming much lately, but yeah, her live streams are exactly that. So if you check this one out. So here she is, how to create a mock-up in Canva, Canva mock-up tutorial, smart mock-ups in Canva. So it's 14
in today's
minutes.
live stream, I'm going to show you.
And she goes through, and you can see there, she's got timestamps in there. She does all of her showing. And then at the end, so she doesn't sort of take questions and comments during it, but at the end, she takes all the questions. So you can see there's like 12 minutes of content, and then like 3 minutes of Q&A, and then done. And the good thing about that is, unlike this show, so if you're watching this on the replay, thank you, I love you, you're awesome. But you watch this as more of like a passive experience. You're not watching this to find out how to do a thing. It's not a Q&A specifically, as in like, how do I do this one particular thing? Whereas doing a more targeted live stream like Sarah's done there, or like Nick Nimmon's suggesting, that can actually help with the algorithm and for people searching and finding what you're doing. So if instead of me doing this, if I just did a 15-minute live stream that was just the how to use EQ, best uses of EQ in music in GarageBand, and I spent 10 minutes going through that, and then you folks were watching live and you were leaving comments or questions, and then right at the end I'm like, okay, and Thomas says that he uses EQ to get some sparkle in his top end, and Mark Bro says he loves enhancing bass with a nice bass shelf on his, like, that's the sort of thing. And then when someone's watching that, like you say, people don't want to sit down to a 2-hour live stream, except some people do. And that's why I do a bit of everything. I need to do more shorter form content and less longer form. I know that at the moment. And Thomas, you know that too, because you're part of our Groovers and Shakers over on Patreon. So we do a monthly live stream, which I need to do, by the way, because it's the new month. We do a monthly live stream where I go behind the scenes and you see a little bit about the channel. And you'll hear about that this time around. That, yeah, there's definitely a need to do some more shorter form content. Not only YouTube Shorts and TikTok and the like, but shorter live streams, where you plan it out, you have a time, you jump on, you do the content, you get off. And to be honest, that's kind of what GarageBand Weekly was going to be originally. And it kind of just fell out. It used to be a 30-minute show, now it's a 1-hour show. And it's that whole creep thing that sometimes you have the intention to do something one way and it ends up being a different way. So yeah, there's definitely some options and some opportunity there to actually do some more short form demonstration. Weirdly enough, and I was going to talk about this before, but you mentioned StreamYard. StreamYard have actually just added a couple of cool new features. And if you're not already a StreamYard user, there's a link down in the description. You can go and check it out for free. I know Thomas Christ uses the free StreamYard to do shows like You Rock. I know other folks as well have used StreamYard and use it and have used it in the past. It is a platform where, so right now I'm live to Facebook, I'm live to YouTube, I'm live to Twitch, I'm live to Twitter. Twitter. Oh, I forgot I was live to Twitter. Elon, I love you, buddy. I'm sorry about all those things I said about you before. I forgot I was on your platform. Eek. So I'm live to all those places. So you can see here, this is the show that we're doing right now. This Ask Me Anything. And for instance, when I do my happy hour, that's going to go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. And when you enter the studio here, it'll take you in. This is going to be a bit weird. It's going to be a bit Inception. I won't actually go in there because it'll get too weird. Oh, there I am. So yeah, there's everything going in there. So you basically jump in there and you can invite guests in. You can do live streaming. You can do all sorts of things. It's very, very cool. We'll just go back to the main screen here. But there's some new features that they've added in here. One of them is the ability to record audio and video locally. So the problem before has been, if I was doing a live show and say I had Thomas and Jade on and we're all talking, based on the internet connections of everyone during the show, there's going to be glitches. So you would have seen that, especially when I did GarageBand Weekly 100 and Dan Baker was on there. His internet connection was really, really dodgy. So if we'd had this platform, then it could have actually recorded him locally, and then you can actually download those recordings and bring them together and re-edit them together. So I've been using that to do some of the tutorials in the last couple of weeks. And it's been really good because I haven't had to worry about the streaming looking glitchy or my connection going down because it records it locally as well as sending it out there. The other thing that they've done, which is the point of this, is that now not only can you do a live stream, you can also do a recording. So you can record directly into the studio, but they've now got on-air webinars. Yeah, so host a webinar on StreamYard or embed it. So if you wanted to do a webinar where you're not, say, broadcasting live, but you're connecting with a bunch of people and you want to do it privately, then you can actually do it there. So I'll actually be testing that next week on Patreon. So if you are a patron of mine, you'll get to help me test and experiment with the new live webinar feature because it could be kind of cool. We could do a little bit of like say, we've talked about this before, of doing like a GarageBand users conference. So like similar to when you do like, the non-fun conferences, if you've ever done them, where you have like different rooms and you have like different streams and things you can go into. So different people could run them. So yeah, we've been playing with that idea for a long time of doing like a GarageBand day where you have different sessions. So you have Jade Starr talking about apps, and then you have me talking about GarageBand iOS, and then Patrick comes on and talks about GarageBand Mac, and doing a big sort of festival of GarageBand or something like that. So maybe something like that could work out well. But it's cool to see. StreamYard are a bit like DistroKid. I like companies that know their core value and know their core product and deliver that really well, but are always trying different things. Some of them fall flat on their face, some of them fail, some of them work really well. And that's good, because if I'm paying a subscription to someone like DistroKid or to someone like StreamYard, I want to know that they're not just sitting on their hands and just taking my money and not improving things. So it's good to see some cool new suggestions. So I know that went off on a wee bit of a tangent there, but thank you, Thomas, for the question. And yeah, it's a really, really good point. Yeah, I know. I'll be interested to see how it works too, how it's interactive. I'm assuming it uses the same sort of tools. I'm assuming you can get people up on camera and stuff. And I've been wanting to do stuff like that for patrons for a while, so that you can either just sit back and passively watch and listen, but there's like interactive, like Q&A and question things within that platform, as opposed to being off on YouTube and having to do like an unlisted something. I know my attention span has gone down so much. Squirrel. Yep, spot on. Spot on. Still says, personally, I prefer long form content, but the general population probably eats that up. Yeah, exactly. That's spot on. Exactly right. There you go. You can definitely jump over to Patreon if you want to help us test that out, or just do shorts that push people to the larger live stream. Yeah, and I need to do more of that. I know. I need to look at what Jade's been doing and copy her. Steal with pride. Plenty of people can steal from me. I love that. So sorry. I like to steal from other people. So I've realised we've finally got the prawn bots coming in. As I was ranting, we got some prawn bots. So that means we've made it. That means we can finish the stream. Might stop live stream for 2022. Cool. Well, that's not good, but good to know. Good to know I'm not missing anything. Righty. The drink you had is so bad. I literally hate the drink you had. It tastes gross. Which drink is that? Which drink tastes bad? Why did I drink it? Oh, did you have a bad drink? I'm having a delicious drink. And it's your question now, DJ Lion Mix King. So, my computer CPU is high when I use the plug. I use this plug. It's the new Kyle Beats plug. Help lowering the CPU. I don't know what you're using. I mean, the basic techniques for lowering your CPU are pretty standard, which is make sure you're not running any background apps, whether you're on an iPhone or an iPad or an Android or a Mac or a PC, whatever it is. The less stuff you're running in the background, the better you are. So that's number one. Turn it off and on is number two, because quite often there's cycles and processes that are going on in the background that you don't even know about. And the only way really to refresh things is to completely shut down and restart. So turning it off and on is always a good thing. Other than that, yeah, you are kind of hamstrung by the performance of your CPU if you're using an app. But yeah, a lot of the time, especially on Windows PC, but also on Mac, a lot of the apps you run at startup, go into your startup folder and see what's running up, because maybe you're running Skype, or maybe you've got Steam for gaming in the background, maybe you've got some sort of instant messaging app. Like, there's a heap of different apps, especially if you buy a brand new Windows laptop. The amount of bloatware, it's called bloatware, that they pre-install on there, it's like pops up like McAfee virus scan. You want an extra 12 months? And then, piss off. It's like, Skype, would you like to log in? No, piss off. So yeah, all of those little pop-ups that you get when you load up your computer, just set those. go into your startup settings and turn everything off. Because I've done that before. I've found that when my computer's super duper slow, it's because if you go into your process settings, it's just sitting behind the scenes. And something like Skype, which I don't use. Like, yeah, sure, if I was using Skype as my phone and I needed to receive phone calls, I need to have Skype running in the background. But I only use Skype like when I'm actually literally loading Skype to then call someone, if I'm doing a live stream or something like that. So there's no point me having Skype running 24/7 in the background on my computer because I just don't need it. Yet every app you install seems to want to, by default, install to startup. So that's probably the best thing you can do to reduce those CPU cycles. Other than that, I mean, it could be a memory thing. If you can upgrade your memory, that's another option there. But if it's pure CPU use, then it's more likely that you might need to upgrade your hardware if you're still having trouble. Some of those newer plugins can really eat. Yeah, exactly. They really can grind away at your CPU. So yeah, you do have to be careful. And unfortunately, it's kind of why I'm using a Mac M1 now, because I found that compared to my Windows PC, I just don't run into those problems. And the same with my iPad. I've got the iPad Pro 2020, which still is really snappy. It's it's the A12X processor, which is like long in the tooth compared to everything else now. But yeah, I don't get any issues with CPU for what I do, but I don't run a whole lot of intensive apps. But it's definitely worth it. Alrighty, we're coming towards the end here, so we've got one more question here from Jeff S. And if you have a final question that you want to ask in the next 5.5 minutes, please throw it here in the chat. Otherwise, if you're watching on the replay, you can leave your comments down below. I am out of captivity now. Yay! I've been released, so I'm back in the wild. I don't have to spend all my time in this room. It wasn't exactly unpleasant being bottled up here for a week. I got to hang out with my youngest daughter because she had the cove as well. So we watched a lot of movies. We watched something like 15 movies in 6 days. So a lot of movie watching, eating popcorn. I ate way more than I eat usually, and I got zero exercise. So straight after this stream, I'm out the door. I'm going to go for a nice big 2-hour walk and sweat it out in the sunshine. Get some vitamin D in me and put the sunscreen on as well. Do different instruments require different dB levels for recording? Yeah. So this is an interesting one. You can go down a bunch of different rabbit holes to answer this question. You can talk about gain staging, which is the art of making sure that all of your volume levels are set correctly, because the idea of gain staging is, if you think about a mixer, in fact, let's visualize it, shall we? Instead of just talking about it, let's jump in and take a look at it. So if I'm using GarageBand's a bit different because it's vertical, but ideally, if I'd recorded all these tracks, at the same input volume, I should be able to have all of these gain dials somewhere around the middle, somewhere around unity gain. So if you're not sure what unity gain is, if you double tap on a volume slider, it doesn't work. You got to use your finger. If I double tap with my finger on a volume slider, it puts it to there, which is like 80%. So that's your unity gain setting. So if you've got your input gain on all these tracks set at the same level, everything should kind of line up. And that way you're only making small tweaks. You shouldn't have anything like up here and something else like all the way down here, because it means that you've probably recorded this one way too quietly and you've recorded this one too loudly. So that's kind of the first part of that. Does it really matter? Not so much. In a digital world, gain staging is not irrelevant, but it's less relevant, if that makes sense. Because the whole point behind gain staging is that back in the analog days, if you were recording something in, if you were grabbing this and you were recording in, wrong one. Virtual instruments don't really matter with this stuff, but if we take a look at this, so if you're recording this in and you had your input gain set and you were hitting at around 30%, that would be no good, because you'd have to bump up your volume. If your input gain's down here, you'd have to turn the output gain on your channel up so much that it would bring in a bunch of noise, a bunch of background noise into your signal. And that was because analog gear, you needed to hit it hard. You needed to make sure it was really close to the top without clipping, or sometimes even just clipping a little bit. A little bit of analog clipping and warmth is okay. Whereas in the digital world, it really doesn't matter, because if you record it too low, then you can just turn it up. And you can turn it up a few different ways. If you don't want to have all of this business up and down all over the place, and you want a more consistency, you can use clip gain instead. So if you came into the actual clip, why have I got this? What's soloed down there? unselect that. So if you come into your actual clip, you can actually change the volume here. So let's say that this volume, look, these guitars look like they're recorded maybe a bit loud. I could come in here to my settings, and you can do this in most DAWs, and just drop the gain there. That way you can keep your sliders looking about the same here, but you've actually reduced this after the fact. So I know that's a bit of a roundabout way to say it doesn't really matter, but in my opinion and in my experience, it doesn't really matter. In terms of do different instruments require different dB levels? Yes, definitely. So if you're using an audio interface and you're setting your input gain, if you're recording, say, a large guitar cabinet with a microphone, that's going to be pretty loud. You're going to have to turn that input gain down to almost no gain coming through on the preamp on the channel. Whereas if you're recording like a very delicate vocal using a dynamic microphone, yeah, you're going to have to crank that sucker up. Or if you're recording a violin or a flute or something like that, you're going to have to turn the input gain up. The same with different vocalists. When I'm here, the classic example is I'm a big fat loudmouth and my wife much less so. So when I'm talking, I talk much louder. So I need to make sure the input channel is down so I'm not clipping. But hers, I need to pump that trim up and make sure that she's got plenty of gain so that she can compete with loudmouth over here and we can hear her as well as me. So that's my views on that one, and hopefully that helps you out with that. Thoughts on clap plugins from Danny Gable? As in like ones that clap? I just clap my hands. I just clap my hands, everybody, and everybody clap your hands. Sorry if that meant something else. I'm not sure. Yeah, and Cloud Lifter is great for quiet mics. Totally is. Question from Keonra. This is going to finish us off. Our final question. Which mobile DAWs should I look at for Android mobile phone? Would like to use and save on the phone, airplane mode, then download MIDI or stems to PC later. Good question. I haven't played around. Cubasis is definitely probably the best option. It is available on Android and it is the most full featured in terms of MIDI and options. So Cubasis, if you want to spend a bit of coin, that you can definitely do on your Android device offline. BandLab is also really good. So it doesn't have as many exporting type features. So if you wanted to export the MIDI stems, BandLab doesn't have that feature, whereas I believe Cubasis does. So I would go for that. Joe Motta, final question. Is GarageBand different or better on an iMac? I use my iPad to record my songs. Yeah, we talked about that briefly right back at the start, Joe. But the short version is yes. GarageBand Mac has things like automation of effects. It has things like no auto normalization when you export it. It has a better mixer, and it has some other little options in there that are going to help you out. It's not a game changer. So if you're finding GarageBand iOS is working for you, I wouldn't go to too many lengths to actually go to anything else. But yeah, it does have some options on there. I've got some videos on here. If you search Pete Johns GarageBand Mac versus iOS, there's a video, I believe, and I think Patrick and myself did a comparison recently where we talked about the key differences between iOS and Mac. That is going to do it, folks. I'm going to have to run before I turn into a pumpkin. Don't forget, if you want to keep up to date with all the latest stuff around here, there's only one place to go, and that is studiolivetoday.com, exactly as it sounds. When you jump over to there, you can pick up my GarageBand iOS Beginner's Guide. It's $10. It's always been $10. It always will be $10. Yes, no dodgy 78% course sales here where you get $412 worth of value for only $97. $10. Buy it, don't buy it. It's up to you. And you've got all the links there of how to follow me on YouTube, the Gear Guide, the Facebook page, the Facebook group, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Pete Johns Music. And I've realized that we don't actually have Discord up there. So I'm going to have to add that there. You've also got my email there if you want to get in touch. You want to send me a hat like Manny did from the Lily Pillies, you're welcome to do that. And if you had some fun here today, thank you everyone for being here. If you did have some fun, like Jade Starr, like Joe Motta, like Chris Lane Sr., like Mr. Mark Bro, then hit the thumbs up there and make sure that you do come back and join me, because we've got 3 more shows over the weekend. We, of course, have the happy hour happening on Sunday afternoon or Saturday night, depending where you are in the world. And then we have Your Music Live. So if you want to submit a song for Your Music Live, check out the details over on the YouTube channel, and then GarageBand Weekly to finish off the weekend. That is going to do it for this one. I wish you all the best for the rest of your day. Thank you all for being here. You're all great folks. And as we say at the end of every show, please be kind to yourself. Please be kind to others. Make sure you keep creating. Hit the thumbs up on your way out. Wipe your feet, folks. And I'll see you next time here on Studio Live Today.